Imene 38 ng Legislature ng Guam is back in session. Next bill up for discussion is Bill number 42-38 COR by Senator Parkinson. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to move Bill number 42-38 to the third reading, and I would like to discuss it at this time.
Can you please read the title?
Yes, sir. It's an act to amend Section 88102, amend 88104G and H, and add to new subsection 88109 to Chapter 88, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to strengthening the fiscal sustainability, establishing the personal policy, and increasing stipends paid to commission members, respectively, of I Komisyon, I Finutamo, Zan I Panenguan, I Historia, Zan Ilalan. Thank you, sir. Itautautana. As amended by Committee on Child Welfare, Youth Affairs, Senior Citizen, Women's Affairs, and Disability Services, the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation, and Hagatnya Restoration.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise to present and ask your support for Bill number 42-38. This is not a new measure. This proposal was first introduced in the prior legislative term as Bill number 252-37 at the request of the Commission, but it was not acted upon. I introduced it again this term, again at the request of Dr. Laura Souter, because I believe this bill is important, necessary, and overdue. At its heart, this bill is about strengthening the institution we have entrusted with the protection, preservation, and advancement of the Chamorro language, Chamorro history, and the Chamorro way of life. It is about making sure that I Komisyon I Finutamo is not merely symbolic, but equipped to do the work we ask for it. Dr. Souter put it plainly in her testimony. She wrote, "The Commission is in full support of Bill number 42-38 and explained that the bill would enable the Commission to seek and receive funding from sources outside of the local and federal government, would facilitate a self-generating sustainable source of income, and would help support its work at no additional expense to the general fund." She also reminded us that the Commission is composed of individuals with path-breaking experience as Chamorro linguists, historians, and traditional cultural knowledge bearers. That is not ordinary service. That is stewardship of a people's inheritance. Dr. Souter also emphasized the larger vision behind this institution. She asked that the Commission be recognized at Guam's Chamorro Repository Archive for all materials written in the Chamorro language and about the Chamorro language, history, people, and culture. That is a profound mission. It is not just administrative, it is civilizational. It is about ensuring that the language of the island is preserved, taught, documented, and carried forward. And the testimony of Anna Marie B. Arceo of Magalahan Huraut Chamorro Academy Charter School was equally powerful. She wrote that this legislation is not just a policy decision, it is an act of cultural survival and justice. She said standardizing our orthography is a vital step in this process because it provides a unified foundation for teaching, publishing, and transmitting the language across generations, schools, and communities. She reminded us that a consistent writing system affirms our language's legitimacy and supports its inclusion in public signage, education, and media. And that's exactly right. As a Filipino, I may not be Chamorro myself, but I know deeply how important language is to identity. In the Philippines, language has always been central to nationhood, memory, and self-respect. The Philippines has its own Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino because language matters enough to institutionalize, to fund, to elevate, and to protect. Orthography matters. Standardization matters. A language, institutions behind it. A language cannot fully flourish in education, scholarship, government, and public life if the institutions behind it are weak. So I say this with humility and conviction because I understand how language shapes identity. I want to empower the Chamorro Language Commission to take the Chamorro language to that next level. The commission was founded for a reason. It was created because the Chamorro language, like many indigenous languages, faced pressures from colonization, assimilation, and neglect. It was created because we understood that preservation does not happen by accident. It requires policy. It requires structure. It requires resources. And it requires respect. Bill 42-38 is about giving that respect practical form. It strengthens fiscal sustainability. It improves personnel policy. It better equips the Commission to carry out its mandates. And yes, it also recognizes that the elders and experts who serve on this body, who bring cultural and linguistic authority to the table, deserve to be supported in a manner that reflects the seriousness of their work. And it is especially fitting that we debate this measure now during Mes Chamorro. If we truly want to honor Chamorro Month, then let us do more than celebrate it symbolically. Let us act. Let us strengthen the very institution charged with safeguarding the language and heritage of this island. Passing this bill would say that we do not merely praise the Chamorro language, we are willing to invest in its future. And so I urge my colleagues to support Bill number 42-38, and I yield the rest of my time, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill number 42-38 COR, General Lady from Tamuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sedus Masi, Mr. Speaker. And thank you for the opportunity to stand and speak on Bill 42-38. First, I want to begin by noting that the testimony on this measure is largely supported, particularly from the Commission itself. And I respect the work they do in preserving and promoting our Chamorro language and culture, such as the Haru Academy, such as Chamorro Affairs, such as CAHA, implementing grants for the Chamorro language. There are many other entities out there pushing for the Chamorro language, and I also want to recognize them as well. However, Mr. Speaker, while the intent of this bill is commendable, the testimony does not fully address the broader structural, legal, and governance implication of what this bill is actually doing. This measure converts the Commission into a non-stock, non-profit public corporation. Again, it turns it into a non-stock, non-profit public corporation. And that is a significant shift. But unlike other public corporations within the government of Guam, such as Guam Economic Development Authority or the Guam Visitors Bureau, this bill does not fully establish the framework needed to support that structure. Those entities operate with independent financial authority, independent personnel system, and clearly defined corporate powers in statute. This bill, however, takes a different approach. It converts the commission into a public corporation, but still keeps it under Title IV personnel rules, effectively locking it into government HR structures. At the same time, it does not clearly define its procurement authority, governance structure, or operation independence. So what we are left with is a hybrid entity, one that is not fully a corporation, but no longer a traditional agency either. And that lacks a clarity, raises real concerns about how this entity will function in practice. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, this changes also affect how we should view board compensations. What was previously a simple per diem for a government commission now begins to look more like compensation for a governing board of a quasi-nonprofit entity, especially one that can generate revenue and receive donations. This raises important questions, and I'd like to ask the sponsor a few questions, if I may, Mr. Speaker.
What are your questions, ma'am?
Okay. This bill sets the commission up like a public corporation, but still keeps it under government HR rules and doesn't fully define things like procurement or governance. So can you clarify, is this meant to operate like a corporation or still like a government agency?
You willing? Is the author?
And can you clearly explain the intended legal status of the commission after this bill?
Author willing to yield to the question?
Well, if I had to choose between the two, I yield to the question. If I had to choose between the two, I would say this is a step closer to making them a more permanent public agency.
Wow. Okay. And then, of course, thank you, Senator. And then, Speaker, also, can you clearly explain the intended legal status of the commission after this bill?
Will you yield to that question, sir?
I believe it's both. I believe the status of it would be both. If there's any questions as to the legality of it, ultimately that gets hammered out into the courts. But any answer I give at this point would just be speculation. But I believe it's both.
So
Did you answer your question?
thank you. Yes, he did. Thank you, Senator, for answering that. But, you know, believing and knowing are two different things. The other question I have, Mr. Speaker, to the author of the legislation is, are the stipends appropriated under a nonprofit style structure?
Would you yield to that question?
Could you please clarify your question, ma'am?
Okay, sure, no problem. Are these stipends appropriated under nonprofit style structure? Could these payments come from non-appropriated or even donated funds? And does this create concerns about double compensation for members who are already government employees?
Could you answer the question?
I think there may be some concerns with that if the workload of the Commission was to increase significantly. But from what I understand, the work of the Commission does not rise to that level of hours necessary to be considered in conflict with having double compensation.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Again, it's very vague, you know, and exactly what the intention is in that section on the answer, but I appreciate him trying for sure. The last question I have for the author is, the bill states that donations to the compensation will be treated as tax deductible, like a 501c3 organization. Can the sponsor clarify whether the commission currently has or intends to obtain federal 501c3 status, given the tax-exempt designation is determined by the IRS and not local statute?
Do you yield to the question?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question again, ma'am?
Not a problem. Okay, so the bill states that donations to the commission will be treated as a tax deductible, like a 501c3 organization. Can you clarify whether the commission currently has or intends to obtain federal 501c3 status, given that tax-exempt designations is determined by the IRS and not local statute?
Would you yield to the question?
Yeah, sure, I'll yield to that question. I'm not sure what the intentions of the commission are, whether they do or do not intend to pursue that. So that would be a question for the commission. But as far as I'm concerned, if that is something that they would like to pursue, we should make it an option for them in statute to do so. Neither affirming nor denying, but leaving that option open for them.
Will that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, and I thank the author for attempting those questions. But, and you know, Mr. Speaker, I support strengthening the commission. However, but I believe we should ensure that if we're going to restructure it in this way, we do so with clarity, consistency, proper safeguards in place, and not taking a guess at what they are going to do or how they're going to move forward. You know, I asked if the good author would be considerate of moving this back to committee so that we can have a sit down, get the proper individuals there. I mean, there wasn't even an attorney there to assist them, and everybody knows that when you're opening a nonprofit organization, you put your bylaws together, you have an attorney there to assist you to move in the direction you want to take it. But there's so many unanswered. I mean, this is just a few questions I asked that are unanswered. And if we're going to do it properly, then I recommend that we do sit down with the right individuals to do this. I mean, we didn't even hear from the administration. My question was, is the Commission a line agency in the first place? Is it under the governor's office? Do we know any of that, the structure that's currently? Because in law, if you look it up, I can't see it, even in its structure, current structure as is. So that being said, Mr. Speaker, you know, I humbly ask that, that this bill go back to the committee, and I make a motion that the bill goes back to committee and to do more research on it, to get the answers to our questions, and to see if this is the path we are going to go down. It's, you know, we're known for not wanting to build government, to grow government, and right now this is almost doing that same thing. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, we're doing it and funding this organization as a nonprofit. We're opening the floodgates for every nonprofit organization on this island as well to come down to this legislature and ask also to be a nonprofit organization under the government of Guam so the government can fund them. Is that where we need to go? Is that where our funding is right now, that we can just easily give away funds at this point? We are not in that situation like we were 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago when excess revenue was like hundreds of millions, you know, or 100 million plus. We are not there. But I give comfort knowing that we do have agencies out there promoting the Chamorro language. We do have schools out there promoting the Chamorro language and keeping it alive. I just ask that before we move forward and that we actually have a good sit down to discuss this with all the entities involved. So, Mr. Speaker, I motion to, that Bill 42-38 be sent back to the committee.
Let's take a moment's recess, please. Legislature is back from session. There was a motion earlier to be able to move this bill back to committee. Senator Tyree, you want to give in the spirit of compromise? What do you want to do? We're back. I'd ask so that I can see if there's a way to be able to work this out.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I guess after the collaboration that we had with the author of the bill as well as yourself, to a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of information that this body needs, and giving the benefit of the doubt, to see if we can try and get some of those questions answered. Maybe an avenue that we can go down, which I'll accept and go ahead and withdraw my motion to send the bill back to committee. But please note that, if our questions aren't answered or we don't come with the right answers, then I recommend that it goes back to committee. But I'll go ahead and withdraw to allow it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn. Okay, any objection? No objection. Senator Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to move bill number 42-38 to the bottom of the second reading. Let's address it last so we can have some time to work out any issues with legal.
Okay.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker?
Sure.
Okay. So my inquiry is to ensure it will go to the bottom of the second round of things, or will it go to the bottom of the committee of the whole?
It'll be go after the committee of the whole.
So it will be addressed after the committee of the whole?
Bottom of the second reading, which is after the committee
Okay.
of the whole.
And Mr. Speaker, just for clarity as well, do we intend to, if some bills are not able to be heard by the end of our timeline, then it could be reverted back to
It could be, but it stays on the agenda.
agenda? Yeah.
It stays
and
on the
then-
agenda, so
okay.
it's still.
Thank you.
So
Thank
even
you.
if we can't, it's still on the agenda. He doesn't have.
Okay. And the intention is to finish by Friday, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, for that
Is that
clarity, and for
understood?
my colleagues to understand that's where we're at today.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Do you understand that too, Senator Parkinson? On that motion, are there any objections to that motion? Thank you very much. Vice Speaker?
Speaker Blat, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place Bill number 65-38 COR, an act to amend Section 1908 of Chapter 19, Title 1, Guam Code annotated, relative to the duties of the public auditor with regard to audits on nonprofit and non-governmental organizations that receive funding from any department or agency of the government of Guam, into the third reading, and I'd like the opportunity to be able to discuss it, sir, please.
Okay, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after a conversation that I previously had with the Office of the Public Auditor and the Public Auditor himself, one of the concerns that was brought up was the issue of the number of non-governmental, nonprofit organizations that receive funding from the government, the responsible funding from the government, which is from taxes derived from the people, that are, while the law states that they must carry their books as if they were to be audited, they could be audited. The law was very vague, nor did it say that they are subject to an audit or they can be audited. So the public auditor wanted to make sure, to ensure that the language is clear relative to those nonprofit organizations and non-government organizations that receive this funding in excess of a cumulative total of over $200,000. It could be for a multitude of years or 1 year, but in excess of $200,000, that they may be subject to an audit performed by the public auditor. It's not a shall, it's a may. It means they are subject to it. This will help to ensure that, first off, he has the ability to be able, the auditor has the ability to be able to go into the books of these nonprofit organizations or these organizations to ensure the accountability and the transparency that this money is being used, the money is being used the way it was intended to be used, the way they had requested to be used when they get the money from the government. So this legislation is pretty simple in that it just clarifies that these organizations can and are subject to audits if they receive in excess of, like I said, of over $200,000. And that's what this bill simply attempts to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker Blas. Anyone on Bill 65-38? Any of my colleagues want to speak on the bill? Senator Gumtato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to share brief remarks regarding Bill 65, which mirrors the provisions contained in Bill 364-37 COR, introduced in October of 2024. Unfortunately, there is no record on the Guam Legislature website regarding a committee report or other committee action during the previous legislature. Mr. Speaker, the FY 2026 budget law provides that all nonprofit organizations receiving public funds shall maintain financial records that accurately account for said funds and shall provide a report to the department or agency that oversees the appropriation and the Department of Administration. Mr. Speaker, additional information such as notices regarding all procurement of equipment and services of $5,000 or more prior to awarding any such contract, and the submission of a detailed inventory listing of each year's purchases as certified by the certifying officers of nonprofits are also required by the FY 2026 budget law. Mr. Speaker, through OPA report number 25-01, issued just a little over a year ago, that office's audit of the Department of Revenue and Taxation's handling of nonprofit organizations revealed challenges, among other things, in the monitoring and oversight of 1,536 nonprofits, of which 625 were active and approved, and 911 were inactive or revoked as of August 2023. In addition to recommending DRT to prioritize recruitment efforts, the OPA recommended for DRT to implement a structured approach to auditing supported by standardized procedures and clear oversight systems to help strengthen its regulatory framework, enhance public trust, and ensure equitable treatment of all organizations under its reach. Specific to nonprofits that would be covered by the provisions of Bill 65, I am of the opinion that this measure can and should be helpful to our government's broader efforts to ensure that nonprofits receiving public funds remain in good standing. This assurance, Mr. Speaker, can be achieved most effectively through a fair and thorough review by the Office of Public Accountability of nonprofit organizations. Recognizing that BBMR, through the bill's fiscal note, is unable to determine if the measure would require additional appropriations to the OPA, I trust that our Finance Committee will be open to discussing requests, if any, from the OPA for supplemental support if needed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time to share my observations on Bill 65.
Thank you, Senator Gumatato. Any other member on the Bill 65-38? Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I certainly rise in full support of Bill 6538. You know, Mr. Speaker, every year as the public auditor begins his year and reviewing audits, he actually puts out a request to agencies and departments and other government instrumentalities. What would be your request for audits? And so I see this expansion as a great opportunity. As you know, Mr. Speaker, I think we're all in this body a big fan of nonprofit organizations. They do a lot of good, and I've worked with a number of them, and they do a lot of good for our government. But also, there have been times where people from the outside view that there may be or have been some abuses when it comes to nonprofit organizations. And I think that including them in the availability of the public auditor and adding that the public auditor may audit nonprofit organizations in excess of $200,000 is a good thing. We in this body talk a lot about transparency, accountability, and to me that applies across the board whenever we're using government funds, whether it's a sub-grant to a nonprofit organization or a direct grant to an agency or instrumentality or any other transaction within our government. So I think it's a good thing that the Speaker has brought this forward, and I support the effort. And as I said, most audits that are done that are outside of the traditional auditing process are made by request of, like I said, either agency heads. I know that it's sent to us senators and other government officials in terms of what would be their interest in seeing an audit go forward by the public auditor, and the public auditor usually sets up their schedule and tries to do that wherever possible. So I support the legislation, and I think it also puts these good organizations on notice that when they're spending funds that are derived from the public treasury, that they're to be accountable and maybe keeping a little closer eye to ensure that they're following the same standards established for all. So for that reason, I look forward to the discussion on the bill. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Any other? And Senator Taidigui, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to stand and rise in support of Bill 65-38. Mr. Speaker, this bill gives clear permission, to step in and for the public auditor to step in and check on bigger grants like NPOs and NGOs, and it cuts down on chances of money being mismanaged or wasted. It says in the bill, audits are as he or she seems necessary, and triggered only for recipients exceeding $200,000 cumulatively, and prioritizing higher risk of large grants without overburdening the smaller organizations. Of course, the fiscal note says there's no fiscal impact regarding this. However, I was wondering if the good author of the bill, maybe there's already an avenue to report this, but it would be good to know or have that ability for the public auditor to provide reporting requirements on these nonprofit organizations to the legislature so that we can see what is really going on in real time. So that's just a question I had to the author.
Does the author of the legislation yield to the
Yes,
question?
I do, and thank you very much for the question. I think that in the discussions that we had with the auditor, and you've seen in his practices, anytime that there is a audit that he performs any activity with regards to economic or financial review of any entity within the government of Guam, he does provide this body with a report, and that is also provided on his website. It's almost like a performance, measure that he provides, and how he allocates his resource. So he does already have a system already set up for reporting that, both electronically, through his website, digitally, and to the agencies. To add to this is already a redundancy, if you will, of the actions that he already takes when he conducts any study.
Does that answer your question, Senator Tideman?
Yes, it does. It gives us, this body, the ability to look at these audits that are conducted, in real time. Mr. Speaker, it's like the year of the public auditor. We should actually make this a year with all these audits coming out to find all these shenanigans that's been going on. And, my colleagues, there's another one coming out very shortly that's going to expose some shenanigans going on within our government of Guam agencies, and it's shameful. But like my previous speaker said, it's not just government of Guam, but there are also nonprofit organizations that tend to veer away from the rules and regulations that govern the status of being a nonprofit organization. So it's keeping everybody in check, keeping them honest, and I rise in full support of this legislation and ask to be the co-sponsor of this measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other member on 65-38? Any other member wish to speak? Senator Law, you're recognized, ma'am.
Mrs. Masi, I have no objection to the bill because it says the auditor may conduct an audit, so it leaves it up to that auditor. And of course, it puts an amount, only those contracts over $200,000. But I looked through the committee report and I actually could not find anything from the public auditor, no testimony, no findings in a previous audit that say this is the problem that we're having, is that these nonprofits are the ones that are not being audited. And most of these nonprofits we're begging them to do these services for us, or they're competing for it, and such as Catholic Social Services is competing technically to do our shelters for us. And we don't audit businesses that do the same, that compete to get business from the government of Guam. We don't go in there and audit their businesses. But I do, of course, believe that the agencies who are paying for services from nonprofits or businesses, that they are going to do a very good review of whether they are meeting the services that they promised to meet, spending the money as they promised to spend it, and things like that. But the other thing that's strange is that DOA says most of the audits are done by, or most of the nonprofit contracts that the government has is with those under federal grants, and that because they're following very technical and demanding federal grant requirements, that that should be enough. And in other words, to not incur the additional costs. But I just found it very interesting that BBMR says this is administrative in nature, and that it's DOA that is going to cover the cost of this audit that is decided by the public auditor, using the amounts that we give DOA for the overall general audit. And as we heard from the public auditor the other day, we are having major issues with the general Guam audit, with even, there were questions about the contractor from DOA. And so I guess I don't want anything else to slow down those overall audits. But I do know that the public auditor's office did do an audit at one point, I think, of the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, one nonprofit, or that was just actually the fund. That was the government fund. And I think, I don't know, I just think we need to really be very clear why we're auditing a nonprofit organization that has competed to do a service for the government of Guam versus a business that is competing to do a service for the government of Guam. We're not going in there and auditing those businesses. But hopefully, the public auditor is going to use their discretion very well, and bear in mind any additional costs or delay, since according to BBMR, this is going to be tied to the overall amount appropriated to DOA for the government's basic financial statements and single audit report. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Senator Chalayi. Any other member wish to speak on Bill 65-38? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sujus Wasi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and speak on the bill, which I definitely support the intent of. It's just a little bit hard to understand how the Office of Public Accountability, given all the audits that they do and all the gnashing of teeth and hand-wringing that the Auditor Cruz is doing relative to these agencies, pretty much dragging their feet on all of the other audits that the OPA has to do. I mean, it was just less than a couple weeks ago, we had Public Auditor Cruz across the hall in the public hearing room, saying he was contemplating issuing fines. And, frankly, I was disappointed he hadn't already. And so while the bill says that the public auditor may audit these nonprofits, and I think previous audits have shown of the Cancer Trust Fund and also of other nonprofits that there are definitely issues that arise that warrant maybe closer examination, because we have seen on Guam really, for lack of a better term, an explosion of nonprofits, because we saw an infusion of over $1 billion in federal funding. And, sadly, sometimes this process becomes political. I know people who tell me that, they were told, go form a nonprofit and the administration's going to fund it. Don't worry, just get it done. So if that kind of thing is happening, I think it definitely warrants, some type of closer examination. I just hope that the public auditor finds the time and, more importantly, the money to be able to do this, because the body as a whole in previous legislatures have passed measures that really require more stringent reporting from nonprofits, and these measures, and was the public law from my good colleague from Jotnya, these measures came as a result of findings from the Office of Public Accountability. And I think that hopefully with these more stringent reporting requirements, and if the bill passes, the public auditor's ability to conduct these nonprofits, that we kind of peel back the veil, because I think there's in some cases might be a misunderstanding with how some of these nonprofits work, because I've seen all too often in some of these nonprofits where people think that this work is being done for free, but oftentimes with nonprofits, sometimes, and this is, hopefully the exception rather than the rule, the first thing people do after they form a nonprofit is decide to pay themselves a big fat salary. And I think that when we're dealing with grant funds, whether they're federal or sub-grants coming out of the agencies, one of the retiring speakers is right. We talk a lot about transparency and accountability, and I think we do need to see it in all areas, with all organizations and all entities that receive funds from the government of Guam. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and just share my thoughts on the bill. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Any other member wish to speak on Bill 65-38? Any other member? There being none, Speaker Blas, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to my colleagues in as far as what they presented, thank you very much. And I can appreciate the support, as well as the one of the assurances of what this bill would be able to provide. And I think I would be remiss not to reiterate that, first off, there's a trigger that occurs here before the public auditor may, not shall, may conduct an audit. One is that the organization is nonprofit, non-government organization, received already a cumulative excess of $200,000 from the government of Guam. for services provided to the government of Guam. Secondly, is that already in the language that is shared or that they have to agree to in receiving these funds is a language that their books and their finances must be ready to be audited. It must be auditable in as far as the record keeping. Again, it was the public auditor's review and concern that while we have that provision that they must prepare the books as if they're going to get audited, there's no requirement and there is no mechanism for that requirement, for that audit requirement. And that's what this would provide. Again, it's not something that's as soon as you get $200,000, you're going to get audited. No, it says it may be audited. Your books and your operations may be audited. So that's what this provides. Okay, and so, with that, I want to be able to thank, again, my colleagues for the contribution to the discussion. And at this time, before I close, I'd like to be able to add co-sponsors to the bill. So with that, I want a motion to be able to place Senators Sean Gumatautau, Chris Duenas, Tello Taitigui, Jess Lujan, Sabina Perez, Sabrina Salas Matanani, Joe San Agustin, Chris Barnett, Therese Talai, everybody that's in the room, okay, as co-sponsors to the legislation.
We're going to take a 1-minute recess.
Yes, sir. I know.
Session's called back to order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I want to renew that motion to add all members present in the hall as co-sponsors to the bill.
On the amendment to add all members as co-sponsor to
Present.
Bill 65-38, any objections? There being none? Senator Duenas.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I then move to place Bill number 65-38 COR as amended on the floor to the third reading file.
On the motion to place Bill number 65-38 as amended on the floor into third reading, any objections? There being none. Colleagues who will now be on Bill number 141-38 COR. Senator Perry, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place Bill 141-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs into the third reading file, and I wish to discuss.
You can continue.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the Chairman, Senator Lujan, for having a hearing and allowing this to be on the session floor today, and all the work that his staff has put towards this. Bill 141 aims to promote island-wide small-scale composting by expanding the permitting exemptions. Currently, the Guam Administrative Rules and Regs only provides one permitting exemption for composted waste generated from no more than 3 households for personal use, with no permitting exemptions for other small-scale composting activities, such as those from farms, community gardens, or schools, etc. Composting is suggested as one of the top methods for diverting organic waste away from landfills, as organic waste often makes up a large portion of the landfill material. In Guam, organic waste makes up about 26% of our total landfill waste, contributing to the release of climate-heating methane gas and toxic leachate into our environment, and contributes to the overall cost of waste management as it quickly fills landfill cells. By diverting this waste through composting, it provides environmental benefits of creating a source of locally produced, nutrient-rich, natural fertilizer for agricultural production that can potentially sequester carbon for better soil health, decrease our need for chemical fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation, and reduce stormwater runoff and erosion. These multiple benefits could support food security by providing nutrients for plant health and growth. It promotes water conservation because of its increased water holding capacity and reduced utility cost. Bill 141-38 is a proactive measure that is inexpensive to implement, but yet provides tremendous savings from post-closure costs associated with mitigating methane gas buildup due to organic materials. It stretches the public investment by potentially diverting 41% if you add organics with paper of waste from the landfill, thus prolonging the landfill's life. Because methane gas is a potent greenhouse gas, Bill 141 also addresses climate change. So during the public hearing, it received support from Guam EPA, Guam Solid Waste, as well as Guam Sustainable Culture for those reasons. The one amendment that EPA had asked, so they basically stated that we appreciate the bill maintains key environmental safeguards, prohibiting hazardous waste, animal byproducts, and biosolids, requiring composting operations to stay on site and be small in scale, and allowing the agency to inspect exempt facilities to ensure proper practices are followed. EPA recommended that they actually implement the rulemaking of composting exemptions. So they are looking towards working on the regulations themselves. But in anticipation of that, the bill provided a template, so to speak, a boilerplate for them to work with. And in speaking with them about it, they had additional changes that they wanted to make to the bill to ensure protection of our aquifer. And so for this reason, I would like to proffer the amendment that is in the drive. And basically, they asked to delete the section about the Guam administrative rules and regulations. And with the understanding that they are going to move forward with the regulations themselves. And so what Section 3 is really, what the bill has is we struck out Section 3 and put in a Section 4 to replace Section 3. So by removing it from the bill, it doesn't change what's in statute, it just changes what's in the bill itself. So by striking out Section 3, it keeps whatever's present currently, and Section 4 is removed so that it allows Guam EPA to continue with the promulgation of regulations. Yeah, so that's what this amendment's about, is basically restoring the rulemaking authority with Guam EPA. And so we gave them this option to use this as a skeleton for regulations, as they develop the regulations. So I ask for my colleagues' support on this amendment.
Okay, we'll take a 1-minute recess.
Okay.
Legislature back from recess. Senator Parrish, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proffering this amendment, so I'm just asking for my colleagues' support on this. I did speak on it. Basically, what it does is it restores the Guam EPA's ability to rulemaking. The reason why we went all through this work is to give them at least some stepping stones to get into it, and we know how difficult it is to start some regulations sometimes, so giving them a starter kit, so to speak, was the intention, as well as I think there was a lot of good work put into it. Definitely we look forward to hopefully keeping those definitions, but I think they wanted to add more to this, and so this gives them this opportunity to make it stronger. Yeah, thank you.
It's pretty expansive. Okay, in this. Okay, on the amendment. Gentleman from Jigo, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I read the bill. I like the bill way it's written. You want to allow EPA to do what? Unacceptable for me. I like the way the bill is written. If you wanted to put some kind of clause here that allows the EPA to maybe change what was written, but to take it out and then we're going to wait for them, and then if nothing happens, I'm trying to look for a time frame, and maybe the author can answer that. Is there a time frame that, okay, we're going to allow you to create the regulations? Tanza, I didn't see something. Maybe the author can direct me to the page, because after you get rid of this, it's almost like a one-page bill. EPA figured it out. And that's not acceptable for me, because there's many things that we've all waited for EPA to do. And I'm going to tell you, they're a good group of people. But sometimes when you leave too much breathing room for someone, expect them to continue breathing while we're waiting on the site of what's going on. And maybe the author can answer that question. What is the time frame for them to do what they need to do? Because already the part on the bill says they're going to do the AAA. Okay. What are we looking at? 90 days? 6 months? 12 months? 2 years? So maybe the author can answer that question. I like the way she wrote the bill. To now delete it makes me not want to support the bill. That's all I have to say. And if the author can answer that question, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Would the author yield to the question? I think the question is...
I mean, I can answer. I did reach out to them today, so I'm waiting on a response. But I know that their intent was to work with the starter kit. But if there's a way, potentially, I can add a timeline to this.
Maybe,
she is amenable to a timeline.
Maybe, Mr. Speaker, amend her amendment, and that they got so much time. Otherwise, this comes in effect exactly the way she wrote it. She did a great job. She did a lot of work, and she can't deny that. She did a lot of work for this, and I don't want to see it go, Nangafanaltafan Senator. No. They should have caught up with her and should have proposed certain things here to say, can you pause on this, delay on this, and we move on. Because I believe Senator Barrett doesn't waste a lot of time. She puts her money where her mouth's at, so, and I support what her intent was. Thank you. And I have nothing else to say other than I can't support the bill if it's to delete it. Let me start with that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I think that there's a compromise, conversation compromise to be able to do this. But I think that one needs to be predicated by another, that he needs the assurance that there's going to be a timeline in order to be able to accept your amendment. So why don't I take a 1 minute recess so you two can powwow? Okay? 1 minute recess. Go and tell him. Yeah, go and tell him. Back from recess, Senator Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recess, and I'd like to withdraw that amendment, and I have a different amendment to offer. It's not written, but it should be very simple.
Okay. On the motion, withdraw. Any objection? No objection?
So the amendment would be in the effective date. It should read, "This act shall be effective 180 days from enactment." So the idea is that the existing regulations are govern composting, and so they have 180 days to modify whatever is here.
So in removing your amendment, you're going to reenact or keep the rest of the language that's in this bill?
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay. So where do you want that? Where do you want now that language?
Oh, I'm sorry. Section 6 of the bill. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Do we need to dispose of the First Amendment, of withdrawing my initial amendment?
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay. So thank you. So the next amendment is under Section 6, effective date. So it should read, "This act shall be effective 180 days from," and then enactment. So scratch "upon," and then
Okay.
you add 180 days from.
Everybody got that amendment? It's not in writing, but I'll go ahead and accept it. It's changing on Section 6, the effective date. This act shall be in effect 180 days upon enactment.
Legal mention from enactment? From
Okay.
enactment. Yeah.
From enactment. Okay? This act shall be effective 180 days from enactment.
And so this allows for the existing regulations to govern until 180 days have elapsed, and during that time, they are given the opportunity to modify it.
Okay, legal clerk, we got it? Okay. On that amendment, any discussion on the amendment? General Lady from Arizona.
This
You're
is
right
Masi.
here.
On the amendment, I support it. I just wanted to know if the author would yield to amending it so that Section 2 of the bill goes into effect right away. This is the law, and that just Sections 3 and 4, the rules and regs, those get held off for 180 days in case they wanted to make different rules and regs. So that the amendment to the amendment would be, this act shall be effective upon enactment, except Sections 3 and 4 shall be effective 180 days from enactment. If the author would yield. That's my suggestion.
Will the author
Otherwise, I
yield to that?
support the amendment.
I rise in support of that amendment to the amendment. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Let me just get a 1-minute recess so that make sure that we understand this up here, okay? 1-minute recess. There it is, back from recess. Senator Tlai, can you go ahead and reiterate the amendment, please?
Yes, I would amend the amendment to now read in Section 6, effective date, this act shall be effective upon enactment, except Sections 3 and 4 shall be effective 180 days from enactment.
This act shall be effective upon an enactment except sections 3 and 4, which shall be
Shall be effective 180 days from enactment.
Colleagues, do we have that? Any objections to the amendment No objections, so ordered. Awesome. Senator Parrish, you want to close on the amendment, on the amendment? Yeah. No? Okay. On the amendment as amended, any discussion on the amendment as amended? Go ahead. Senator from Zigu, you can
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of the amendment as amended. You know, one of the beauties when they have the 180 days? AAA's 90. Por favor, if they don't do their job, then Saunia goes in effect. No more of this waiting around. They got the opportunity to do it, and we just see it get to work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm in full support of the bill now.
Thank you. On the amendment to the on the amended amendment, on the amendment that has been amended, any else want to speak to the amendment as amended? General Lady from Tumuning, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in full support of the amendment of Bill number 141-38 COR. This measure is a practical and I'm getting drawn. As I mentioned, this bill is practical and forward-looking steps toward improving how we manage waste on our island. This bill also expands limited exemptions.
Senator, are you talking on the
I thought we already disposed of the amendment to the amendment as amended on the amended bill.
Not yet. We're still on the amendment that was amended.
Then I'll amend myself back down. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment as amended? No discussion? So ordered. Senator Chulai, you do have the floor now. Senator Tide
It's okay. We're getting close to the end of the day. It's been a long day, Mr. Speaker. I totally understand. Again, Mr. Speaker, I rise in full support of the amended bill on Bill 141-38 COR. And as you know, this measure is practical and forward-looking step forward on how we can improve and manage waste on our island. This bill expands limited exemptions from permitting requirements to allow more small-scale on-site composting activities across our community, and that's why I'm very glad the good senator of the legislation decided to keep the content of this bill intact. Because right now, nearly 42% of Guam's waste stream is organic material, yet only a small portion actually is composted. Instead, much of it ends up in our landfill where it produces methane gas and harmful to the leche. Leche. Okay, no, sorry. Leche 10. But with respect, this impacts both our environment and public health. This bill removes unnecessary barriers like the $100 permit fee and allows households, schools, farms, and even local businesses to participate in composting while still maintaining safeguards to protect health and the environment of our community. Colleagues, this bill makes it easier for our community to do the right thing, to reduce waste, support agriculture, and most especially protect our island for future generations. It is a small change in law, but one that can have meaningful impact on sustainability and savings across our island. So I stand in full support of this bill, and I thank the good sponsor for her work on this. And of course, the inclusion of the 180 days makes a lot of sense too. That was added into it. So other than that, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak in support of this bill.
Thank you very much. On the bill, as amended, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentleman from EPAT, sir, you recommend.
Sijos Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to rise and talk in strong support of the bill. What I like about the bill is it gives an exemption to the community gardens. As you may or may not recall, Finance Senator San Augustino was supported by the body. We had done an amendment to allow for community gardens out at the schools, and so in going around to the schools, it's very encouraging to know that a few of them have implemented this community gardens, and I believe we also gave the ability for service learning hours to be granted. And it's my understanding that these community gardens are having to go through this permitting process for the composting, so I'm very glad that it's going to, alleviate that and make it a little bit easier. No environmental good deed too small for my friend, the good colleague from Barrigada. And, I was just kind of thinking, composting, it seems kind of like a new thing, but I think that's only because our environmental awareness, worldwide has increased. But I remember my late grandmother, Rosario Flores Tenorio, she had a green thumb. In fact, like her whole hand, both her hands were green. And she used to have a little MY Sand container. Do you remember that? The MY Sand bucket, and it came with all the different cookies. She used to have a little container by the sink where we would dump our food waste. We'd scrape our rice or, whatever little leftovers we had in there, and then that'd go into the big pile that she had, by the Cocina San Hizung, that was the compost pile that would go to, for her orchids and her elephant ears and all the different beautiful plants that she always had around the house. So, composting it goes back to the antes cuantas times, and I think anything we can do to encourage that, especially since so much of our waste stream, almost nearly half of it is compostable, I think is a great thing, and I'm proud to stand and speak in support of this measure from my good colleague from Barrigada. So, Sijos Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill, as amended, any other colleagues wishing to speak on the bill? Gentleman from Talafofo, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill 141 as amended, is a part of a very comprehensive approach by Guam EPA and community stakeholders to improve waste management, consistent with established policies including Public Law 35-37 and Public Law 36-115, both of which effectively change the way that resources from the recycling revolving fund are in fact prioritized. With the goal of reaching 50% waste reduction by 2035 and 75% waste reduction by the year 2045, Guam EPA's Zero Waste Master Plan estimates that approximately 13,500 tons of food waste and compostable organics from hotels, restaurants, grocery stores end up at the Luzon landfill. With respect to recyclable plastic, mixed paper, cardboard, aluminum, and glass, the Zero Waste Master Plan estimates that over time, implementation of the initiative is projected to increase waste diversion in Guam by 2%, or approximately 1,800 tons annually. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the latest effort to divert organic waste from landfills, and I am honestly much more concerned about where our government stands with these efforts, if any exists at all, to divert general waste, not just away from landfills, but our roadways, sidewalks, beaches, and our public parks. Now, according to the EPA Zero Waste Master Plan, stakeholder polls conducted in 2022 revealed that the top contributors to illegal dumping are the cost of proper waste disposal, lack of enforcement, and lack of convenient disposal options near residences. Mr. Speaker, focusing on just one of the top contributors, really the lack of enforcement. The government of Guam, through Public Law 24-304, from the year 1998, requires all departments, agencies, and instrumentalities, including our autonomous agencies, to make every effort to reduce solid waste, use recyclable products from recycled sources, and using biodegradable products, and allow composting whenever feasible. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill can and should challenge this and our sister branches of government to lead by example and take seriously the intent and the spirit of the nearly 28-year-old public law, which recognized at the time that the local government, inclusive of our public school system, was the biggest consumer of recyclable products. Mr. Speaker, coming across terms like sustainable solutions, circular economy, and environmental justice throughout Guam EPA's Zero Waste Master Plan should not just make us feel good and warm inside. They should motivate each and every one of us to do our part, a very small part, if you will, to keep our island safe and clean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you very much. On the bill, ranking member from Pago Bay, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon. I just want to say that I rise in support of this measure, Bill 141-38, and thank the good sponsor for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that sponsorship. And more importantly, as we look at the intent of this bill, which is giving the bill will divert organic waste from the landfill by creating greater opportunities for small-scale, decentralized composting within our community, and through the implementing and permitting of exemptions for like apartment buildings and farmers and food establishments, hotels, schools, grocers, and designated community gardens. Mr. Speaker, this process literally, as noted by GEPA or EPA, saying that it would take away from some of their funding resources. But when you look at the bigger picture and bringing the awareness out on literally taking the time to compost, you make for a cleaner, greener, and healthier island. And in this efforts, working with this provision, I think it's a win-win for everybody. And I just want to thank the good author of this for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this measure. And I don't know, Speaker, many moons ago, I want to say almost 24 years ago, I introduced legislation and as it relates to the Beverage Container Act, and maybe one day soon, sir, just maybe one day soon, we can see full implementation of that bottle bill, and hoping that we can truly bring the industry of that, and even composting, because for those who don't know, composting can literally turn into black gold. And for the farmers and all those who know, composting can be very, very valuable. And I just want to thank the good sponsor for this, author for this measure, for giving me that opportunity to continue to be part of this. And as we look at advocating for a cleaner environment, a cleaner community, this is the way to work it, and giving that opportunity on a smaller scale. So, Sijus Masi, for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this measure. Sana Masi.
You're very welcome. On the bill as amended, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators? Senator Perez, you can close, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would be remiss to not also include my gratitude towards the committee for bringing in an expert, Chris Rosario from Department of Agriculture, who's also in charge of biosecurity. And so that was one of the improvements of the bill. I mean, the bill was already well thought out, I must say so myself, but he included the idea of biosecurity and included measures to prevent the spread of potentially invasive species. And so there was a good improvement on that in regards to requiring a buffer zone for apartment buildings and other community sites where composting is going to occur. And I want to extend my gratitude for that. So I do appreciate a lot of the statements that were brought forward today. The zero waste plan, thank you for reminding me about that, that we do have a plan in place to reduce the landfill waste, things going to the landfill. So the idea is that we have to divert our waste by 50% by 2035 and 75% by 2045. And really, it is doable. It is feasible if we can implement this bill, composting island-wide in our backyards, because composting really is nature's way of recycling organic material for its own use. As a tropical island, Guam is ideal for composting, so the practice should be normalized and widespread, granted that we provide those safeguards as listed in this bill. And we already have many entities that are ready to assist in internalizing this practice with households across Guam. Guam EPA, in collaboration with Guahan Sustainable Culture, has been implementing something called Composting in Every Village program, in which it pairs composting with receiving fresh produce. The UOG Cooperative Extension has provided composting curriculum that's been used in the schools. When I was a teacher, they actually had curriculum that we were able to use with a curriculum that I helped to co-pilot, which is permaculture. And so it's really grateful to hear the support from this body and also the urgency with which this should be implemented to help reduce what's going to our landfill, to help protect the environment, to reduce the cost to growers. Because when we have compost in soil, about 30% of the it holds water, so there's less of that need to continually to irrigate. And so we're conserving all around, saving money, saving the environment, and I appreciate my colleagues' support. At this time, I would like to add co-sponsors, so anybody here today that would like to be a part of that isn't already a co-sponsor, I would like to add as co-sponsors of the bill, unless they choose not to.
Okay, there's a motion to add members present as co-sponsors to the bill. Are there any objections? No objections? So ordered.
Again, thank you to my colleagues for their support and for helping make this bill better. And I would like to move Bill 141-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amended on the floor into the third reading file.
On that motion to move Bill 141-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amended on the floor to the third reading, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Taitigui, you are next.
Sujus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place Bill 142-38 COR, an act to amend 13108A of Chapter 13, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to amending the Special Cost of Living Economic Task Force. And I would like to speak on it.
You want to move it to the third?
To the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on it.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I want to thank you today for being here. That's where we all start. It's just being here and doing what our constituents expect us to do. And that's go through legislation to ensure the safety and well-being of our community, but most especially our retirees. These are individuals who dedicated their lives to serving the people of Guam. So today, I rise in support of Bill 142-38 COR and humbly ask for my colleagues' support as well. This bill addresses an issue that touches the lives of many of the government of Guam retirees who depend on fixed retirement benefits to support themselves and their families. And for many of these individuals, their retirement income represents years, often decades, of dedicated service to the people of Guam. When the Special Cost of Living Economic Task Force was created, it was intended to study how the rising cost of living is affecting our retirees and to provide the legislature with recommendations based on economic data and analysis. The task force was meant to bring together experts and officials to examine inflation trends and help guide responsible policy decisions. However, since its creation, there has not yet been a publicly available report or clear update on the work it was expected to complete. As a result, the information that was meant to move this conversation forward is still missing. For this reason, I'd created Bill 142-38 COR with intentions to strengthen the task force responsible for examining Guam's rising cost of living and identifying solutions that help our residents manage the increasing expenses we all face today. By clarifying the leadership of the task force and placing the chair with the committee that oversees the Government of Guam Retirement Fund, I believe it'll help ensure that the voices and concerns of retirees are properly represented. Because this committee works closely with retirement and pension issues. It understands how the rising cost affects our retirees. It's also important to recognize that retirement fund itself has not raised any opposition to this bill. Bill 142-38 COR helps move forward the important work needed to better understand the challenges our retirees face and explore ways to ensure that retirement benefits reflect the realities of living on our island. It recognizes that men and women who dedicate their careers to public service deserve retirement security that keeps pace with the cost of living. I humbly ask my colleagues to allow this bill the support it needs to send this task force to the Oversight Chair of Retirement. And that's as simple what the bill does at this point. It adds more work to the Oversight Chair of Retirement, but I think it's worth it. Our retirees are worth it. So I humbly ask for your support.
On the bill, 142-38 COR, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentleman from Talavovo, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I got to say I'm particularly interested in some of the history behind Public Law 3750, which originated as Bill 2-37, and which this measure, Bill 142, attempts to amend. The proposal from last term initially proposed to authorize by law a supplemental cost of living payment to Government of Guam retirees living in Guam using $2,000 as the baseline and establishing a sliding scale schedule beginning at about $40,000. The introduced version, Mr. Speaker, of Bill 2-37 removed the legislature's practice of adjusting annual COLA payments through the Government of Guam's General Appropriations Act and placed the responsibility with the Special Cost of Living Economic Task Force. Mr. Speaker, according to the Government of Guam Retirement Fund, the introduced version of that Bill 2-37 required this Special Cost of Living Economic Service to meet and annually develop a report to estimate Guam's cost of living, recommend COLA adjustments, that declining sliding scale that I mentioned earlier. And I just want to also add this little tidbit. There was a Finance Committee roundtable hearing held on October 2nd of 2023, prior to this bill's public hearing on April 20th of 2023. The Finance Committee concluded action on the bill by amending the proposal so that only the section that establishes the Special Cost of Living Economic Task Force, which again, what Bill 142 is impacting was maintained. Additionally, the final version removed the 2,000 baseline and 40,000 threshold for implementing the sliding scale. Now, I say all this, Mr. Speaker, because as for reference, Social Security recipients, they receive a COLA based on increases in the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers from the third quarter of the prior year to the corresponding quarter of the current year in which the COLA became effective. I just want to say that between the years 2021 and 2025, Social Security recipients received the following adjustments: 5.9% in 2021, 8.7% in 2022, 3.2% in 2023, 2.5% in 2024, and 2.8% in 2025. Regarding federal government retirees, according to the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, COLA adjustments are made yearly to the amount paid to annuitants. For the year 2026, those who retired under the Civil Service Retirement System will receive a 2.8% increase, and those who retired under the Federal Employees Retirement System will receive a 2% increase. That rate varies each year. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the bit of latitude that you've allowed me here to go over some of the history on the broader policy which will be impacted by Bill 142. It is clear, at least to me, that policymakers can, and we should, look to the Social Security and federal retirement systems for a bit of guidance on how best to move forward with adjustments to the annual COLA for our government of Guam retirees, each and every one of them. And at some point, we will be the same, a retiree. All things considered, Mr. Speaker, COLA, which the governor, through her FY 2027 budget request, has set aside $21.9 million for individual $2,500 COLA payments to the 11,971 retirees and their survivors in FY 2027. All of this paid for by the general fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to share these comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the bill, 142-38 COR, any senator wishing to speak on the bill? The gentle lady from Georgia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, again, I want to commend the author of this bill. It sounds like some leadership is needed in order to make this task force meet and do what it was intended to do. And so I'm glad that by this bill that is going to happen. It was very important. It is very important that, of course, we determine the cost of living allowance for our government of Guam retirees. I think we should do that as soon as possible, ahead of time of the budget, so that we can work around that in the budget, and that it's not like whatever's left, we'll give that, but in the reverse, that we are going to prioritize cost of living for our retirees, build that in. This information would be helpful even prior to the governor's submittal of the budget, so that she could include it in her estimates as well, and work around it. And we know many of our retirees are living on very, many of them live on some very challenging levels and very much rely on this cost of living to make ends meet, to get additional things done on a year-to-year basis. So they very much look forward to this. I think as early as we can let them know what it's going to be is good for them as well for planning purposes. So I support this bill, and I supported the bill that this is the law that this is amending, again by the same sponsor, because just to kind of take the politics out of what our cost of living amount's going to be in an election year. We can throw in, as some people will try to throw in as much as we can. I think we can have a very formal, steadfast basis to rely on and for our retirees to rely on as well, so that they can feel confident they're going to get this, and that it's based a lot on how it's being based elsewhere as well. I know that the Bureau of Statistics and Plans does a work already towards estimating this cost of living, and so I'm hoping that this work can really be expedited with the experts that we already have working on such statistics in the government of Guam. Sujus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and again, I support this bill, and thank you to the sponsor, Senator Taitigui.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill. On the bill. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill? Gentleman from Ipan, you recognize, sir?
Sujus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to rise and speak in support of the bill. I was just sitting here thinking, many, many years ago when I wrote a song about the cost of living allowance that went a little something like, "Cola's not a gift, Uncle Sam gives it too, but on Guam, if you want it, you have to sue." C-O-L-A, Cola. So feeling very blessed to be here and speaking in support of this bill, because I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to have the legislative chair of retirement on this committee so they can be really engaged with what goes on in these meetings, and hopefully it just creates it should create that direct line from this committee to the legislature, so that the legislature can move in concert with the chair of the retirement committee to ensure, the timely decisions and assessments that are made with the cost of living allowance, which, newsflash, I'm not really sure you need a committee to tell the people of Guam that the cost of living continues to rise every day, whether it's the cost of food, the cost of gas, obviously. So many things just keep on rising, and so yes, I think we need to have the ability to be more expedient in determining how much we're going to give to the retirees. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to rise and speak in support of the bill. As the vice chair of the retirement committee, I'm just a heartbeat away from being involved with this process. So, and that's not why I support the bill. I support the bill because it makes sense for Tunpid and Tanana. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill. On the bill. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators? Senator Taitigui, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and BIBA retirees. BIBA retirees. Come on, colleagues, BIBA retirees. Mr. Speaker, our retirees built Guam as we know today, and we want to keep them here. I was listening to some of the comments that were made and, bringing up statistics and data, and that's exactly why this task force needs to put in place to get that data and statistics, to bring into the task force that it was made up to have conversations with I think Dr. Jones is still on it. Hopefully, she can still, from the University of Guam. We have Gary Hiles from the Department of Labor, BSP sitting on this task force, and that's amongst a few that can contribute to see that we are not giving our retirees a true cost of living. Mr. Speaker, we keep undercutting our retirees. They are going to leave this island. They're going to need to stretch that dollar as far as they can. And being here where it's too expensive, even Hawaii is having the same issue, where many of the people in Hawaii are leaving Hawaii and moving to places like Texas, where the cost of living is more doable based on their retirement. But if we have our retirees leave, that also deplenishes our taxes that we collect. To every dollar that we give our retirees, I believe it's 1.3, comes back to the government of Guam. So think about that. How do we keep our retirees home? This is one way to take it seriously, to have this task force in place. It's already by law, it already allows it, but we need to keep moving on this. We need to move forward on this. Mr. Speaker, our retirees have built Guam today, as I mentioned. They taught our children, cared for our families, protected our communities, and kept our government running. Their years of service helped shape the future of our island. Retirement should be a time when we can live with stability and dignity, not a time when they must worry about whether their income will be able to keep up with the rising costs of basic necessities. Supporting this bill is one step closer toward honoring the commitment we made to the people of Guam. It will allow the work that was originally envisioned to move forward. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I respectfully urge my colleagues to stand with our retirees and take an active role in our retirees and be part of the task force. There are members of the task force that sit on the task force, but it doesn't stop any of you, anybody in this body, from joining in the task force and listening to what is being said. And I invite everyone to be a part of that task force for the retirees of our island. One of the greatest generations that we can honestly say thank you so much for doing what you did, sacrificing your time to serve the people of Guam in that capacity. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I move to place Bill 142-38 COR to be placed into the voting file, the third reading file.
On the motion to place Bill 142-38 COR into the third reading, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries.
Seduce Masi, Mr. Speaker.
30-second recess.
Legislature's call back to order. On Bill number 181-38 COR, Speaker Blasio recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be able to move Bill 181-38 COR back to committee for the purposes of, right now, Mr. Speaker, our body is in litigation with the governor's office with regards to certain powers and duties and responsibilities of our branch of government with respect to the executive branch. And this bill may have some implication with regards to the kind of action or the kind of, I guess, what the governor is contending. And as far as legislative interference into executive functions. So for the sake of not wanting to get mired, and because we're in litigation, and not to have any kind of the discussion that may reflect on the litigation, I want to move this bill back to committee into such time.
On the motion to move Bill number 181-38 back to committee, any objections? Hearing, seeing no objections, so ordered. Take a 30-second recess.
Legislation back from recess. Next bill on the agenda is Bill 214-38 COR. Senator Gumatauta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place Bill number 214-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Finance and Government Operations in the third reading file and request to speak on the bill. It is an act to amend Article 3, Section 15401A6, Section 15401B, Section 15401D, Section 15401E, and Section 15403, all of Chapter 15, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to strengthening the independence and effectiveness of the Guam Ethics Commission.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to present Bill 214 as amended by the Committee on Finance and Government Operations. And I want to personally thank the Chairman, Senator Chris Duenas, and his team, the Committee on Rules, Legislative Counsel Phillips, and Executive Director Nico Fujikawa of the Guam Ethics Commission for working closely with me to prepare the bill in time for this month's session. Mr. Speaker, Bill 214 represents a request that I received last year from constituents to review the current membership of the Guam Ethics Commission and to consider establishing government entities and community organizations as sources for future appointments to the Ethics Commission. Also, the measure as amended responds to the Ethics Commission's efforts to modernize and, frankly, give teeth to their enabling statute. After introducing the measure, I met with Ethics Commission Executive Director Nico Fujikawa, who expressed support for the bill's intent and shared with me that the proposed changes coincidentally align with a list of suggested amendments to the broader Ethics Commission statute that he and his office continue to work on and had continued to work on since he assumed the leadership role of it in June of 2025. Mr. Speaker, as amended, the bill's title and findings and intent section were edited to remove the requirement for community organizations to appoint several commission members. Now, this change was made as a result of the testimony that was submitted during the public hearing, and it recognizes the chief executive's appointment authority. The bill now requires the chief executive to seek and consider recommendations for his or her appointments to the Guam Ethics Commission. The bill identifies a few community organizations from which the governor of Guam may seek recommendations, including but not limited to the Guam Bar Association, the Society for Human Resource Management Guam Chapter, the Association of Government Accountants Guam Chapter, and the Guam Chamber of Commerce. At the request of the Guam Ethics Commission, the amended version of Bill 214 changes the vote requirement from 5 to 4 for all actions of the Commission. Mr. Speaker, for reference, the Civil Service Commission, which consists of 7 members appointed by the Governor of Guam, does not require members to possess specific industry backgrounds, and all actions by the CSC require the affirmative vote of at least 4 members. The quorum threshold for the Civil Service Commission is 4. Bill 214, as amended, represents specific recommendations from the Guam Ethics Commission. The bill provides that an employee who is found in violation of the Ethics Code, and if the violation is non-criminal in nature, he or she shall, in addition to disciplinary actions imposed by their department, be subject to an administrative fine as outlined in the rules and regulations developed by the Ethics Commission in accordance with the Administrative Adjudication Law 5 GCA Chapter 9. Mirroring the state of Hawaii's Chapter 84 Standards of Conduct Policy, the employee would be subject to a fine of up to $5,000 for each violation of the Code of Ethics. All fines collected would be deposited into the general fund, and no fine shall be assessed unless the Guam Ethics Commission convenes a hearing in accordance with the statute and a decision has been rendered by the Commission. The Ethics Commission and respondent must agree to resolve any charge of an alleged violation prior to completion of the contested case process, and the resolution includes payment of an administrative fine or restitution or both? Mr. Speaker, $2,326,734. That's how much in taxpayer funds has been appropriated to the Guam Ethics Commission between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2026 for the organization to initiate, receive, and consider charges concerning alleged violations of Guam Standard of Conduct, and to initiate or make investigations or hold hearings. Now, according to the information published on the Ethics Commission's website, since opening its doors, Mr. Speaker, in March of 2022, the Commission processed 53 complaints involving alleged ethical misconduct. Of those cases, 30 were dismissed, and 4 were accepted for further investigation. 19 were under review. Of these cases, 6 were related to employee use of confidential information, and 16 related to prohibition against unfair treatment. 7 claims, Mr. Speaker, involved allegations of conflict of interest, and 24 fell beyond the authority of the Commission's jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, in its second edition, issued in April of 2024, the Commission processed 25 complaints involving allegations of ethical misconduct. Of those cases, 18 have since been dismissed, and 7 were forwarded to the Office of the Attorney General of Guam. Specifically, 9 stem from allegations of violations of prohibition against unfair treatment, 4 involved alleged conflicts of interest, and 12 fell beyond the authority of the Commission's jurisdiction. As recently as the bill's public hearing last month, the Ethics Commission reported that 34 ethics cases were filed in 2022, 27 in 2023, 15 in 2024, and just 3 in 2025. Mr. Speaker, established in 1996 by Public Law 23-105 and finally implemented in the year 2019 with the support of the administration through Executive Order 2019-06, the Guam Ethics Commission exists to investigate and take appropriate action on alleged standard of conduct violations by officials and employees of this government. If approved, Bill 214 as amended can and must serve as a means to help update, modernize, strengthen policies impacting this important organization, which began operations, yes, in 2019, long after its creation in law 30 years ago. As amended, this bill aims for the Ethics Commission to be more inclusive and to reflect a broader swath of our community. Equally important, Mr. Speaker, the measure proposes to give the Ethics Commission the teeth that the Executive Director and the Governor's nominee to the Commission, Attorney Genevieve Rapadas, during her confirmation hearing, had asked senators to establish. Accordingly, this bill is drafted with provisions that will, I believe, strengthen the Ethics Commission moving forward. The measure as amended ensures that we as policymakers are no longer appropriate precious taxpayer funds to government. We're not going to give it to them. We're not just going to hand it off to them without any corresponding performance expectations, as the Finance Chair has been doing with his performance-based budgeting over the last several months. Mr. Speaker, this bill promotes an Ethics Commission membership that reflects fair-mindedness and diligence. Sound, common sense policy, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, that will be useful in modernizing this important organization now and into the foreseeable future. Again, integrity, public trust, accountability. These are not catchphrases, Mr. Speaker, but these are values that we all can share in ensuring that our public sector performs its work as mandated by Guam law, and we should not expect anything less. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to present Bill 214 as amended, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, 214-38 COR. Any senator wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill. Any senator wishing to speak on the bill? Last call. Gentleman from Tamuning, sir, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and certainly want to rise in full support of Bill 214-38 and commend the author for his work on this. During the public hearing, we did have some requests for changes, which we incorporated in the markup of the bill. And also I wanted to reiterate the fact that new board member, who I hope we're going to confirm here in the voting file, Genevieve Rapadas, came forward. And I was so impressed that attorneys their time is very precious, but she took the time to stay and listen to the deliberations on the public hearing for the bill. So I think that, even the executive director, Nico, made the comments that he believes that the strengthening of the commission as well as this effort really gives a lot more, gives a lot more notice that the public engagement and the watchdog approach to making sure that that ethics within our government is upheld. He believes that going forward it will strengthen that, and as well as just the general notice of the fact that it's proper for ethics in government, and that this commission is prepared to take action on complaints that they receive going forward. So I commend the author for bringing more light once again to this, and also, like I said, as we add a new member that's very eager to get to work, I think that we'll see more productivity and more accountability in our government based on strengthening this law, as well as adding very valuable members to the board. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the measure. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
You're welcome. On the bill, 214. Ranking member, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking at the time, and I promise I'll make this short. I literally want to stand and rise in support of this measure as proffered by the good senator from Talafofo, and just knowing that the independence and the effectiveness of the commission members literally working for free and giving of their time, and realizing though it's a very small savings, I think it's a good thing, and I just appreciate the work that the Guam Ethics Commission is doing and is going to do and will continue to do to protect the integrity of all the efforts as it relates to making sure that our employees do right by all their mission mandates. So thank you, Senator Gumatauta, and hopefully I could be a part of this, and appreciate that the request of literally just taking away, I mean, not that it's much, but you look at the $50 per meeting to every commissioner, and just knowing that they want to, it will literally free that, just shows for greater effectiveness and the credibility of the work that they do. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're very welcome. On the bill. On the bill. Gentlelady from Tamuning, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. I too just have a few questions for the author of the legislation. Making some cuts is one thing, but they say it's a penny short, a dollar. What is that? A dollar short, a penny wise, wise dollar short, and basically you're just, if you basically don't use any funding at all to be able to cover any kind of function that's needed, then you end up having to have more issues down the road. That's my concern. So my question basically, and I'll probably remember the penny wise, dollar short, I think that might be it. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I do have a question to the author of the legislation, if he should yield. And that question is, how will eliminating compensation and reimbursement affect the Commission's ability to recruit and retain qualified and independent commissioners?
Author, yield to the question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You want to repeat the question?
Yeah, I was stuck on the other part of the figure of speech, but I wanted to at least get the question.
Oh, this, the figure of speech of penny wise, dollar short, or pound foolish? Oh, that's a pound because Mr. Byrne is not here from Department of Administration. But my question, let me go back to the question. It's very simple. It's the elimination of the compensation. How will it affect the Commission's ability to recruit and retain qualified independent commissioners? Was there any question brought up during the public hearing, and was that a concern brought up? And if it isn't, does the author of the legislation see an issue with that?
You to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Commission, there was no objection from the Commission. If there's an amendment, I don't think I'm going to stand in the way of that. But at this point, there was nothing from the Commission to object.
Okay.
Answer your question?
Yes, that did. My other question to the author of the legislation is the projected savings cost, and that's what we were trying to, he's trying to establish here from eliminating the commissioner's compensation. That funding, that savings, has it been decided where that can be utilized? Because one of the most important parts of this commission is their website, to be able to, for the public, that's their ability to find out what's happening with cases, or areas where they can fill out applications, or things that they do on the website that actually keeps them engaged in their situations if they are bringing a complaint forward, or how to go about doing it. And putting up a website does cost money, so was there any discussion about how they're going to main the website, if they're going to use any of that cost savings for it?
You to the question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, much of the savings that would be anticipated would probably go right back into public trainings, into the ethics training that is all the government employees are required to actually undertake. Helps all the employees of this government become more aware. I want to go back, if I could, just on the stipend. It is in that prerequisite for people to continue serving or wanting to serve. That's not an issue at all. But the whole idea of what this measure is going to do, it's going to modernize it, but importantly, especially on the enforcement side, Mr. Speaker, that this is really going to send a note, a big fat note to government employees that, okay, this is important now, take it seriously. There are issues that if you don't.
Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it did, in a way. But however, Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commission was established in 2018 in the 34th Guam Legislature, to be put in years. So following years of public concern about government accountability and ethics conduct, I think there was a call from the public wanting more transparency and accountability of individuals. So I just hope that, if this bill should pass, to keep an eye on what, if anything, would diminish some of the hard work that's put forward, or the ability for our public to be able to have a venue to vent through. And as we encourage many of our people not to turn a blind eye, to ask the hard questions, as well as to, go in front of a commission and let them know what's going on in their areas while keeping in confidence. So other than that, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit on this measure, and thank the author for answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. On the bill. 214-38 COR. On the bill. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Any other senators? Senator Matato? Or hang on. Did you want to speak? Okay. Gentlelady from Barragata, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I just have a question regarding the makeup of the Ethics Commission. If the sponsor of the bill, I know it states that it basically deleted all the what was there initially, which had to do with a lot of government positions, those that are serving in government, as well as a member of the Guam Women's Chamber, the Guam Chamber of Commerce, the Mayor's Council, and then it struck out the Association of Guam Accountants. And, you know, I support the independence of the Ethics Commission and its operations. I know, you know, prior to this current governor, it was inactive. And so little by little, we saw its implementation. And so I think this is, you know, does strengthen its independence. Again, you know, Guam is such a small island, and so we always have a struggle for independent decision-making when it comes to adjudication of decisions or disposition, resolving any claims. And so in looking at what replaces it, you have basically recommendations from the community organizations, right? So it lists, but not limited to, so it includes Guam Bar, Society for Human Resource Management, Association of Government Accountants, Guam Chapter, and the Guam Chamber of Commerce. And so I'm always looking to see how, how independent how can we ensure that they're independently and held to the highest standards in deciding these cases? And also I look and question their expertise. You know, I know that's a challenge for here in Guam, and I just, maybe this is a question for the sponsor of the bill. Was there any discussion regarding ensuring independence in the decision-making process, considering that these are, of course, outside of government, and I see the huge shift, right? I guess maybe if he can speak more to the change in that, and how does this Ethics Commission going to guarantee that independent decision?
Would the author use the...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The organizations that are listed in the policy do reflect folks that come from a very broad range of contributions and industries in this community, whether it be finance, legal, business. The governor in this measure can and could consider other organizations if that is what the chief executive would want. In my opinion, we want more people to be involved. There was a bigger list, Mr. Speaker, when we initially did this bill. I mean, I'll use from my former branch I was at. The judiciary said it was good that they wanted, that we were thinking about them, but at some point they're going to have to settle a dispute that would come from an action from the Guam Ethics Commission. If we're increasing administrative fines and the like, at some point it is going to come before the lower court, and at some point, if it does, it could see some appellate work. But it was to be a little bit more inclusive of this community. We have folks in our community, Mr. Speaker, these organizations, they have their own ethics types of, call it mantras, or even call it their own sayings and the like across these organizations. But it gives the executive that chance to go to these organizations, bring them in, and help support this important government effort. Hope that answers the question of the senator.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
It does in some way. So I guess what I heard was that they have to abide by a certain standard of conduct, right? If by belonging to these particular organizations. I guess maybe my other question would be, why the shift out of government employees? Was there a reason why that shift took place as far as the composition of the board versus a hybrid sort of approach? Because right now it's shifting completely over to community organizations. Was there any discussion regarding that?
Would you yield to the question?
Interestingly, it's a modernization of a law that we should have been doing a long time ago. This community it's such an interesting thing when we think about the amount of activity and knowledge and expertise that we have, Mr. Speaker, and there's quite a bit from folks that are outside of government to offer up their insight, especially if they're willing to be a part of it. The senator, our good colleague from Tamuning, mentioned one of the nominees to this very commission, willing to spend the time to bring her skills and expertise. And in 2026, it just seems very reasonable to start to get more involvement from our community to move things forward, especially in our government.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
In some ways, but it doesn't really answer why the government employees were taken out completely. So, but now we're relying on community organizations with stated standards of conduct. And so I guess in looking at the bill too, it does say there is an opportunity to promulgate regulations. So perhaps that's the way to ensure that there is a standard within the Ethics Commission to ensure that things are done fairly. And that's really my questioning, my line of questioning was about is, as we're shifting the composition of the Ethics Commission, just want to be assured that there is a fair process involved. So I appreciate it, the opportunity to speak on this and to ask questions. Mrs. Masi.
Thank you. Gentleman from MIPAD, so you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and speak on the bill. And I commend the retiring speaker for raising these concerns. And I, too, am also concerned about the elimination of member appointed by, well, scratch that, member appointed by the Chief Justice, members from the Chamber of Commerce, the Women's Chamber of Commerce, Mayor's Council of Guam. And I only struggle with it because, we want members of the Ethics Commission to truly be independent. And I'm just not sure how binding this language is, and if the author would yield. Under Section A, reads the Guam Ethics Commission shall consist of 7 members to be appointed by Imagahagan or Magalahin Guahan with the consent of Legislature in Guahan. The governor shall seek and consider recommendations for his or her appointments to the commission from community organizations, including but not limited to the Guam Bar Association, the SHRM, Association of Government Accountants. I guess my question is, if the governor seeks and considers recommendations but doesn't like them for whatever reason, does it then default to the governor being able to appoint whoever they want to the Ethics Commission? So I'm not sure what the shall applies to, because, I'm just worried about a situation where we get good recommendations from these organizations, and the governor sought these recommendations, considered them, but ultimately decided not to abide by them and instead appoint someone else. So I guess if the author would yield, does he believe that's a possibility under this bill as it's written?
Would you yield to the question?
Sure, I'll kind of see if I can answer that the best from experience. When I think about some of the boards and commissions that exist today, one that jumps out at me is the UOG Region Nominating Committee, Mr. Speaker. That when there's names that are sent up to a governor and the chief executive, that governor may or may not want that person for whatever reason to support what they feel could be the push of the University of Guam at the time. In the case of this, it's not binding. The governor can select whomever they want based on the current requirements. Again, it'll come here for confirmation. So I think the chances of somebody that would be good, it's really going to be still incumbent on the governor. The governor can go to these folks and ask for advice. Hey, what do you think? The reason why the judiciary was taken out, Mr. Speaker, was that they're, again, going back to the idea that if a dispute comes out of the Ethics Commission, they would not be able, in their opinion, they felt like, hey, they would be part of the process. So they felt that wouldn't be proper for them. And I do appreciate the input from the administrator of the courts and the Chief Justice as just one example. Hence why we said, okay, maybe we'll look at the Guam Bar or other organizations. A lot of expertise, Mr. Speaker, and I think that that's where this was coming from, was the idea that if the governor wants to send folks their names down here based on these recommendations, then they can make that final decision, and then we'll do our process here.
Did I answer your question, sir?
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, yes, it does answer my question, and that's my concern is, although the bill is purporting to be a strengthening of the independence and effectiveness of the Guam Ethics Commission, what it actually could allow for is a situation where we insert a hell of a lot of politics into the Guam Ethics Commission by allowing the governor to appoint whoever they want to sit on it. And I don't see how that, Mr. Speaker, strengthens the independence or the effectiveness of the Guam Ethics Commission. Imagine the scenario. Imagine that next year we elect a new governor who perhaps is the same party as the legislative majority, and then you just get these rubber stamp appointments. And so that's what I worry about, because even by the author's own admission, the language does seem to allow a scenario like that, and that really just flies in the face of what the intent of the bill seems to be. And so I just wanted to raise that concern, and I think, with just the different types of nominees that were allowed in the bill before amended, it really spread out the power, I guess, so to speak, the nominating power to different individuals, whether they be the chamber, the women's chamber, or whatnot. And now what we're doing is we're concentrating this decision-making authority in the hand of the chief executive. And I just think if we're talking about an ethics commission, we need to move as far away as we can from a scenario where you have a governor or a legislature who's going to support, the party line, for lack of a better explanation. So I just wanted to rise and raise those concerns, and I just want to commend my good colleague from Barragata for kind of going into that line of questioning, because I do agree, as does the author, that this could potentially allow a scenario where the governor does seek and consider and then potentially reject nominees from these different community groups. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir. On the bill. On the bill. Any other senator wishing, that gentle lady from Zoya, ma'am, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker. I was listening to this debate that's going on about the composition of the board and who should be on it. And I think it's a little confusing because the original version of the bill is very different from the bill we're looking at now, the amended version. So the original version mandated that certain organizations or entities of the government of Guam, for example, the Mayor's Council, would be represented on this commission. That's what the original bills wanted to add to our statute. That was amended, and now the bill before us goes back to appointment by the governor, confirmation by the legislature, except that it has this, I'm going to call it funky language, this shall seek and consider recommendations from community organizations, including but not limited to, and then it lists some organizations. And when I looked at the Guam Ethics Commission testimony to see, did they recommend this language or where did this come from? They said at that time, during the public hearing, the commissioners and I have not had a chance to discuss in detail an official position regarding the makeup of the board. That's all they say about that. So I don't think it was their recommendation at all that these associations be added. And maybe just to, that's not one of what they were asking for, then I would just suggest, let's just delete it. And it still allows the governor to seek and consider recommendations from anyone she wants to, he wants to. It allows people to ask to be appointed, as they can do right now, and it pretty much restores the same composition. And because apparently there was no problem with the composition. That wasn't the problem that they were trying to solve here. They're trying to make the Ethics Commission more transparent, more accountable, more able that the public would have confidence in it. But it didn't have to do with the composition, just all the other parts of the bill, which I support. And so I would recommend, and I don't have this in writing, that we just delete the end of 15301 subsection A on page 2 from lines 12 to 15, and we just take out the words from community organizations, including but not limited to, on all those organizations. Just take that out, because she already has that power to seek recommendations from anyone she wants. And that way we're not running the risk of not including somebody, and we're not running the risk of violating her organic authority to decide who she wants to put on there. And we're not trying to solve a problem that we do not have right now. And we continue to allow anyone who's interested in serving on this commission to make their interest known. So the sentence would read, starting on line 11, Imagat Hagan Guahan shall seek and consider recommendations for his or her appointments to the commission. Period. That's it. And then I think we can dispose of that debate. It's really going to restore it to what she can do right now, what's the authority, who composes this commission right now, and then we go back to making a quorum. But I do, well, after that, I do have one question for the author, separate paragraph though.
Okay, there's an amendment to the bill found on page 2, line 12. After the word commission, a period there, and then from community, from line 12 all the way down to line 15, is to strike that all that language out. Okay? So from community organizations, including but not limited to the Guam Bar Association, Society for Human Resource Management, CHARM, Guam Chapter, Association of Government Accountants, Guam Chapter, and the Guam Chamber of Commerce, that's to be stricken out. That's the amendment. Okay? Anybody on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to rise and object to the amendment from the good senator from Jotnia. The language now does not violate the governor's right to appoint whomever she wants. Again, it goes back to this idea that to ensure that the governor can go a little bit more broad-based. The organizations like the Mayor's Council, the judiciary, the Women's Chamber specifically, they asked to be removed. They thought it was a good gesture. It's the first time that in any policy, public policy, the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce was added, but they felt that maybe for their organization it was something because of their membership rotation, their leadership, they couldn't considered to have that type of representation on this particular commission. Again, it's only suggesting whom she can consult when considering making appointments to the commission today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, there is an objection to the amendment. The amendment is to strike out from line 12, starting from line 12, from community all the way through line 15. Any other person wanting to speak? You want to? Gentle lady from Barragata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment because upon reading this, it looks like we're prioritizing community groups rather than having more of an expansive approach. And that's why I support this amendment, because the way it looks right now, it looks like we're preferencing these particular organizations by naming them. So I rise in support. Jesus Masi.
Thank you. Gentleman from Ipanso, you're recognized.
Sujos Masia, Mr. Speaker. I too rise in support of the amendment because I think it gives the governor the ability to expand beyond this very narrow group of individuals that the bill allows the seeking of nominations and the consideration of nominations. And hopefully we can get government employees onto this commission, because government employees, they live the government of Guam life. They have the insight. They know when, something doesn't pass the smell test. And I think if we're talking about a commission that, oversees and regulates ethics in the government of Guam, then government of Guam employees should absolutely, have a seat at that table. So I support the amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. On the amendment, there's been an objection. You want to go close on your amendment?
Jesus Masi, yes, I'd like to close just to just point out some of the language. So, as written, the bill says the governor shall seek and consider. So she must seek from these organizations, these particular organizations, maybe others, but for sure these. And it's true, what one of my colleagues said, it looks like it's a preference for these organizations to submit their nominees, but there's no real rationale behind that. This is an ethics committee for the government of Guam. The governor needs to pick the best suited, knowledgeable people to serve on this commission. And I just think it limits this, that she must seek from these organizations and then kind of reject those nominees, as opposed to always being able to seek anyone throughout the entire community that's best for this. Should I continue, Mr. Speaker?
Go ahead.
Yes, and then again, if we want a broad range of people, that's how to do it, is just to make this amendment by just deleting this language and leaving the composition of the commission the way it is right now, especially in light of the Guam Ethics Commission's testimony that they had no issue with that composition. That's not their issue. That's not the problem that they asked to be solved. So again, I ask my colleagues to please consider that. I really think that's the best way to proceed here, without any preference for any organization. This is an ethics commission. We're trying to remove preference. Sitos Masi.
Okay. On the amendment, there has been an objection to the amendment. So therefore, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Talai, you still have the floor.
Sitos Masi, I'd just like to ask about the deletion of the $50 stipend on page 3, line 10, if the author would yield the rationale behind that.
Will the author yield to the question? Why did you delete the $50 stipend?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, going back to working with the Ethics Commission today, these were recommendations that were acceptable to them. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Mr. Speaker, I think that's really a misleading statement. There is no evidence in this committee report that they asked for that. In their testimony, they don't address that. I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to do to them by removing the stipend and in other bills trying to increase stipends for other boards. It's just we have a rule kind of across the board that they all get $50 unless they get more. A few exceptions. And I don't know. I think, I don't,
Go ahead, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
so much is going on around here.
Go
But
ahead.
yeah, again, so I would make a motion to restore that language again on lines 9 through 12, that the $50 stipend for the members of the commission be restored.
Okay. There is a motion to reinstate the language that is being struck out from page on lines 9 through 12 on page 3. Am I correct? Okay. There is an amendment to reinstate the lines that are being stricken from lines 9 through 12 on page 3. It says, except that they shall receive a stipend of $50 per meeting not to exceed 4 meetings per calendar month, and shall be compensated for all normal expenses of travel and for the cost of meals while in session. Anybody want to speak to that? Nobody wants to speak to that? Any objection to that? No objection to that? So ordered. Senator Lai, you still have the floor.
Again, I want to commend the work of the Guam Ethics Commission and what they had by their testimony supported that we are going to change the quorum. They're a 7-member board, and to change the quorum from 5 to 4 so that they could more easily have their meetings. I mean, from 5 to 4. They also really wanted us to support the transparency that they are promoting and the penalties. To make sure that those are very clear, that they are allowed to adopt rules and regulations that will protect their operations against political influence and other external interference. A website that the public can monitor all that's going on there. These are all very good. They are willing to open up their records, and seems like they are very willing to do the work. Again, there was no complaint about the composition. The hearing that was held was not on this new composition. It was on a completely different proposed composition of the board, which was appointed by the Speaker, the Judiciary, the Mayor's Council. It reminds me of the original Ethics Commission law, which had members from all these different areas, and it became a problem. And again, I don't want to ruin a good bill by putting in preferences for certain organizations to be represented on there when that's not something that the Commission had asked for or that they are having a problem with. We've talked about how they've actually been having very qualified people on the board, able to help them with this complex work. And again, I just don't want to I just don't want to muck that up with any preferential treatment of anyone. When we've excluded all employees, we've excluded all family of employees from this board, and now we're going to make a preference for any organizations. I just don't think that's necessary. I think the Guam Women's Chamber had it correct, and when they asked to be omitted from the first round of the bill, where we were mandating who was going to be on that commission. And I just think this is one of those that we just don't want to show any preferential treatment. If we're going to exclude employees, that we're going to be picking who's going to be judging them, as opposed to allowing this process to go as it has been successfully. As the author of the bill pointed out, the statistics of the complaints and that they've been addressed. Let's not change that system. And let's not shadow it in preferential treatment of certain organizations in the private sector versus any other organizations in the private sector. I don't like that either. And, or any other just individuals who don't belong to these organizations either. So otherwise, I would support this bill. Si Diyos masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the bill as amended? On the bill as amended. Any other senator wishing to speak on the bill as amended? No other senator. Senator Sean, you want to go ahead and close it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make just a few comments before I kind of go in my close. I just want to talk about the importance of our markup process here in the Guam Legislature. I know people don't get to see it, but there are people behind the scenes after a hearing is complete, Mr. Speaker, who give us their input. We hear it on the floor. And we go back, we work it through, committee makes a decision, legal clears, we're back at rules, we're back here, and the beauty of it all. And I just want to say it that I don't think there's a preference here, Mr. Speaker. I think that the list of organizations that a governor can start with and end with, who they can appoint, the words are in the bill, including but not limited to. It's not meant to put one person out. It's meant to be more inclusionary. And I'll start by saying this. While some in this hall might question the necessity of Bill 214, I caution that in its absence, a question on the necessity of the Guam Ethics Commission might come up. However, Mr. Speaker, before this legislature considers abolishing, defunding, reducing appropriations, or otherwise altering the Ethics Commission further, my position at this point is that policymakers, we all should work with the agency leadership and their governing boards to strengthen their work, including giving their enabling laws the teeth that it needs to effectively adjudicate complaints and impose penalties consistent with public policy. Through Bill 214, the legislature is responding, Mr. Speaker, to the Ethics Commission's request to begin the process of amending their enabling statute and to empower them through the establishment of timely, proportionate, and enforceable consequences based on rules and regulations which shall be developed by the Commission in accordance with the administrative adjudication law. Mr. Speaker, the standard of conduct for elected officers, appointed officers, and in public employees of the government of Guam as established in 4 GCA Chapter 15 is not a list of suggestions for the 15 of us in this hall, our employees, and the thousands of individuals who have answered the call to serve the people of Guam. These standards protect against employees receiving gifts in return for special and unauthorized action carried out using public funds and under the authority of the government of Guam. These standards ensure that private documents or information that are not used for personal gain or for the benefit of unauthorized persons. These standards restrict employees from using or attempting to use an official position to secure a grant unwarranted privileges, exemptions, advantages, contracts, or treatment for himself or herself or their family members or close friends. Mr. Speaker, these standards guard against conflicts of interest, particularly those which violate our procurement regulations and agreements which are executed outside of an open public process. These standards require former employees within 12 months after their termination of employment to refrain from assisting anyone or business in anything or taking a fee, for that matter, for any government agency which these employees had actually served. Mr. Speaker, Bill 214 is a step forward in our desire to deter and eliminate potential unethical behavior and actions which undermine public trust in our institutions of government. With this measure, we as policymakers have an opportunity to restore our people's faith in government, and also to be a little bit more broad, to look at the expertise of great people in our community that have value, who are also served by the government of Guam employees that they're going to assist with this particular commission. With that, Mr. Speaker, I want to just make one motion to add a co-sponsor, Senator and Ranking Member Senator Tina Munoz-Barnes, as a co-sponsor to this bill at this time.
On the motion to add Ranking Member Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes as a co-sponsor to do Bill 214-38 COR. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I want to move to place Bill 214 as amended by the Committee on Finance and Government Operations and further amended here on the floor to the voting file. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, again for the time this afternoon.
Thank you. There is a motion to move Bill 214-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amended on the floor to the third reading, and there has been an objection. All those in favor of moving the bill to the third reading? There has been an objection. Let me take a moment's recess, please.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker. Oh.
Legislature is back in session. There's a motion to move Bill 214-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amendment of the floor to the third reading, and there's been an objection. So therefore, because there's an objection, all those in favor of moving Bill 214-38 COR as amended to the third reading file, please indicate by raising your hands. Motion fails. Okay. Let's take a 30-second recess.
Legislature's back to session. Senator Lujan, you're recognized on Bill number 234-38 COR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to move to place Bill number 234-38 COR, an act to add new subsection 731157 to Article 1, Chapter 73, Division 3 of Chapter or Title 5, Guam Code annotated relative to mandating the adoption of the automated system for customs data, also known as SACUDA, as the official customs management system of the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, and to authorize agreements with the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development for its implementation and maintenance. On the third reading file, the opportunity to discuss it, Mr. Speaker.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to take a moment to highlight some of the work done by the 37th and 38th Guam legislatures, a bipartisan effort, of course, led by Vice Speaker Tina Rosemary Barnes and Senator Mary Camacho Torres. Together, they began the process to implement the digital manifest system and the utilization of the harmonized code, tools that align Guam with global customs and trade standards, Mr. Speaker. While the rest of the world was already using advanced technology, here in Guam we needed to pass a law to modernize, and that's exactly what happened. Through close collaboration between our regulatory agency, the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, the legislature, and even the United Nations. And I also want to take time to recognize the CQA officers that are with us here this afternoon, their hard work and diligence in helping us put this bill together, and for the years that they've worked hard to work alongside previous legislatures to help modernize the Customs and Quarantine Agency. Colleagues, this bill represents a critical investment in Guam's future, one that will have tangible benefits for our economy, our border security, and our government's operational effectiveness. When we talk about economic recovery and competitiveness, we must look beyond surface-like indicators and focus on systematic improvements that strengthen Guam's foundation for growth. Modernizing our customs management system is one such improvement. It increases efficiency, reduces delays for legitimate trade, and enhances our capacity to safeguard revenues and borders. SACUDA is a globally proven system. It brings Guam in line with international standards, allows better data sharing across agencies, and supports our customs agency with tools that match its legal responsibilities and mission. It also ensures that Guam can leverage technology to respond quickly to changes in global supply chains, something that has become painfully clear over the last several years. This is not just a technology upgrade, it is an economic development measure. It sends a signal to partners, investors, and the international community that Guam is open for business and committed to modern, transparent, and effective governance. We have heard from customs officials and stakeholders that this change is necessary, timely, and responsible. Those are not just words. Those are facts backed by local and international experience. But colleagues, we must also confront the hard truth. The use tax audit identified system gaps that have led to massive revenue losses for our island. Conservative estimates put the loss at least $65 million annually, Mr. Speaker. That testimony before the body made it clear that the number could be as high as $150 million every single year in uncollected taxes. Let it sink in. That is not theoretical revenue. That is money already owed under current law that we are simply failing to capture. And colleagues, the committee report reinforces just how serious this issue is. It makes clear that our current customs systems is still largely manual and paper-based, an environment that creates real risk of unaccounted cargo, revenue leakage, and even fraud and abuse. In fact, the audit found that the government could not even determine the true volume of certain imported goods because our system lacks real-time tracking and reliable data. Without that data, we are making policy decisions in the dark while weakening our ability to enforce the laws already on the books. The report describes our current system as fragmented and error-prone with little coordination between agencies. That is exactly how we end up losing tens, if not hundreds, of millions of dollars annually, Mr. Speaker. This bill directly addresses those deficiencies by modernizing how we track, assess, and enforce customs declarations and import data. We close the loopholes that have allowed this leakage to persist. This is not about raising taxes. Repeat, this is not about raising taxes. It is about collecting what is already due to the people of Guam. We are not operating in a vacuum. In Palau, after implementing this system, they saw an immediate 27% increase in tax collections. That is a real-world example in our region, demonstrating exactly the kind of impact this investment can have. Now, some may ask about the cost. During a public hearing, the implementation was estimated to roughly cost $2 million. But I want to put on the record what the public auditor said when asked directly whether that investment was worthwhile. He was very clear, and this is what he said, to quote, "At the very least, yes, any amount is needed." Colleagues, this is a powerful statement when the very office responsible for accountability and oversight tells us that any amount needed to fix this problem is justified. We should listen. And I also want to emphasize this body is already being proactive. I know from working closely, of course, with the Customs and Quarantine folks, and alongside my good colleague, Senator Chris Duenas, that we are actively exploring a newly open grant opportunity with the Department of Interior, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to assisting with the grant writing process to help secure funding for this initiative. And if that funding does not materialize, at a minimum, Customs can begin drafting the necessary rules and regulations now that by this budget season, we are ready to make this small investment as a last resort. Because let's be clear about the math. $2 million in investment to potentially recover $150 million annually represents a return of over 7,400%, Mr. Speaker. Opportunities like this do not come often in public finance. And frankly, by budget season, you may all find yourselves coming back and thanking Senator Chris Duenas, Customs, and yes, you can thank me if you want to as well, as we all work to figure out how to fund all kinds of much-needed investments across our government. The real question is not whether we can afford to implement this system, it's whether we can afford to continue losing this level of revenue year after year. I believe this bill helps position Guam for a stronger, more resilient future, one where we are better equipped to support trade, strengthen compliance, and participate fully in the regional and global economy. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I respectfully request that we all vote in the positive for this bill. It's much needed and long sought after. And finally, again, that we have this bill before us. And, you know, when we're looking at economic woes and the situation, this is something that, that, again, has been due to us. Imagine if all the years we had this implemented, how much we could have had and how much more the government could have been doing with this money to fix what needs to be fixed here in Guam, Mr. Speaker. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On Bill number 234-38, Ranking Member Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of this measure, and want to thank the good author for letting me be his second co-sponsoring, knowing that we have been working on this bill even since the 35th, 36, 37, we're now on the 38, almost 8 years later. And as I see the Customs and Quarantine officers up there, I want to say on Dunklina Sidzuas Masi for not giving up on us. And truly, Mr. Speaker, seeing that this is a bipartisan support. And as the good chair mentioned in this bill, that this bill modernizes the operations and improves revenue collection. It helps to collect more information about what comes into and out of our island to help us form better economic policies here in Guam. We are literally sitting on invaluable economic tool at our port and airport, and we have to tap into it. And I'm appreciative of the work put into this. And I ask my colleagues for the support, Mr. Speaker, because as the good author of this bill had mentioned, when I was working closely with the public auditor and seeing the realization of what Guam could really touch, we were making sure that we knew that it wasn't a tax, but we were just recovering or looking at what can be received, because nothing goes in or out without this Asakuda system being implemented, which sees everything in and out. And that realization, when we were first talking about it in 2019, we were looking at over $65 to $85 million. And now, as the good author just said, it's over $100 million. And believe it or not, we are the only one in this part of the Pacific region of this blue continent that does not have it. And the successes of what our island brother nation of Palau has had, seeing that increase of over 27% and climbing until the full implementation is in, to see what their return of his investment is, Mr. Speaker. This is a win for our island of Guam. And I must say I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention one of our other colleagues that was with us at the time, Senator Mary Torres, who was a really big advocate to this measure, Mr. Speaker. And as you look at the different public laws that we've had from the 35th to the 37th till today, I just want to say thank you to Customs and Quarantine for not giving up on this August body, but more importantly, for working closely with us from, I want to say all of them that are up there from Rick, Mendiola, Ray, just Franklin, everybody who had a part in working with this measure, and knowing that and seeing that this is a plus for Guam, and making sure that whatever comes in and whatever goes out, that there is a digitalized programming that's in place that sees what our island has and takes in and gives out. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to rise in support of this measure. I want you to know that there's over 10 colleagues on this measure, and I'm hoping that we can get a unanimous support on this measure. And again, thank the good senator from Tamuning, Uncle Jesse, for giving me, Senator Jesse, for giving me the opportunity to be his second co-sponsor, and realizing that we took a lot of meetings and a lot of time to work through this measure, and I never gave up. And I want to thank Senator Jesse again, Majority Leader, for believing that this was good for Guam and following through with me on this effort. So thank you again, and I hope that all my colleagues support this measure. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Ranking Member Muñoz-Barnes. Senator Gumatato, you're recognized on 234-38.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to offer comments in support of Bill 234. Mr. Speaker, in approving Bill 176-37 by Ranking Member and Senator Muñoz-Barnes as Public Law 37-82 in April of 2024, the governor at the time recognized that the measure, which calls for the creation of an automated customs system, would help Guam efficiently collect real-time information on all merchandise that enters our U.S. territory and enable the more efficient collection of duties owed on that merchandise. Additionally, the governor acknowledged that the measure would benefit the Port Authority of Guam by reducing the time customs officials require to process each shipment and allowing the port to more accurately and efficiently classify the cargo that's currently being held at our seaport. Mr. Speaker, together with Public Law 37-82, Bill 234 is critical to finally addressing some of the major issues that, as the author mentioned, our OPA has identified over the years, including the one that really jumped out at me, Mr. Speaker. That's report number 20-01 from January of 2020. And I'll just reiterate, the OPA documented significant flaws and deficiencies in the government of Guam's use tax processes, including but not limited to manual recording and assessment of incoming air cargo, substantial backlogs in processing assessed but unpaid use tax forms, the inability to reliably determine the true amount of taxes assessed, collected, and outstanding, and the lack of an interface between CQA and the Department of Revenue and Taxation's automated systems. Mr. Speaker, that OPA report found in calendar year 2018, that was mentioned by the author, air cargo operations received incoming cargo worth $1.6 billion. Let that sink in. $1.6 billion. Without considering all the exempt cargo, the 4% use tax rate. If collected up front according to the OPA, that $65 million is a lot of money. However, based on existing laws, again, we were only able to collect a very small amount. Mr. Speaker, $65 million is a whole lot of money that can help pay for new ambulances, fire engines with aerial capabilities, patrol vehicles, a new police precinct in Jigo, an emergency communications center in Barragata Heights. Mr. Speaker, $65 million is more than enough to support CQA's recent applications for congressional funding, which, if approved, will help provide for much-needed assets, including stationary and mobile X-ray equipment, water vessels, and drones. Mr. Speaker, beyond strengthening CQA as our frontline defense against the illegal movement of weapons, drugs, and other contraband into Guam, let me just say, Mr. Speaker, that this is an absolute must for us, for this government. It's going to help others, too. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I appreciate the work of the author, and I support this bill, and I thank him for putting forward a substantive and long-awaited policy solution that will more than modernize and strengthen CQA's operations now and into the foreseeable future. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you, Senator Gumatato. Any other member on Bill number 234-38? Any member? Senator Lai, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. I rise in support of this bill. Of course, I'm grateful very much for the work of Guam Customs and their work on this bill as well. And thank you for their interest in pursuing it. It's, if the author would yield, he mentioned a cost of $2 million, but I don't see that in the bill. The bill, in fact, calls for them to make a anticipated budget and funding source. If he could just yield as to the source of that information.
Would the author yield to the question?
Yes, okay. You can please ask the question again, please.
You mentioned that it's going to cost $2 million. What is
Yes.
the source of that information?
The information actually was it's the hardware and software that has to be purchased for that. And that information came from previous, like Palau and their purchase of their equipment as well. That's what it costs to do that. But the source right now, it just became available to us for the grant under the Department of Interior grant. So it looks very positive with us working closely with the clearinghouse as well. It looks very positive for us to get that funding.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, if I could just ask one more, if you would yield, is to then did Customs apply for that grant with the Department of Interior to pay for this system?
Yes.
All right, Sizus Masi.
Thank you.
All right, so again, thanks again to Customs for their foresight and their work on that. And I'm glad to hear that news because one of my questions was really going to be, you know, we've been talking since the 35th, we're in the 38th Guam Legislature, but in the 35th, they implemented this mandatory notice and manifest must be presented. And then one of my colleagues said they've been talking about this since 2019. The use tax audit was done in 2020. We passed a law in 2024 to mandate certain system that information would be provided and coded. And now this, on page 9 of this bill, it says, for me, everything was going great until I saw this part that says in 90 days, they're going to submit an implementation plan. And I just hope that they had already prepared that. And if they have already applied to DOI, then perhaps they're further along than this bill implies. And I'm hoping that's the case. So this implementation plan that's supposed to be submitted in 90 days is a projected timeline for the phased deployment, the configuration, staff training, integration with Rev and Tax and other agencies, anticipated budget and funding sources, description of how the implementation will address deficiencies identified by the OPA. All of this, hopefully, is the reason why we're going with this system and why we're exempting Customs in the procurement of this particular system from certain procurement laws and hopefully to expedite this. So I do hope if they are ready with this in shorter than 90 days that we can see that, and if they in fact are able to go forward, they are actually able, I think, to go forward. If they are getting funding from somewhere else, from DOI, then they are able to go forward without any further action on our part, without any waiting. And that I really do hope that they're not, I mean, they're up there, but I do hope that the implementation expected under that DOI grant will be immediate. Again, we've been fully aware for many, many years about the use tax, and I think Customs has to answer to that every time they come in. I think they answer for importation of drugs every time they come in, and those two things we've always found challenging to to quantify, to account for fully. And so I support this. They're going to be allowed to use a certain type of system that is recommended by the United Nations, that is used by other islands in the region, other nations as well. And it's going to fit our scale according to the testimony of what we our commerce here on Guam, and that this is going to allow them to very quickly and also to integrate with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, integrate with Public Health, the Department of Environmental Health in their inspections of and public health duties inspecting as well. So, Sujus Mase again to all of those who have brought that grant forward, make this work, this progress happen. Sujus Mase to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. On Bill 234-38, Senator Barnett, you're recognized, sir.
Sujus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to stand in strong support of the bill, but more importantly, our hardworking customs officers, as there are a few of them up on the balcony. I'm very proud to be a member of legislatures that have passed measures, whether it's the harmonious coding or this one, which I anticipate the unanimous passage of. And all of this is to not only capture, and these aren't new taxes, these are just taxes that we're not capturing because we don't have the ability or the software or the program that's needed to help customs like process all this stuff that comes in through our borders. And so when we, we talk about these huge numbers, like 65 million, I think it was said, that's great because customs needs our support. In all ways, every time we get a bill about customs, I always make this analogy. Over the years, as we've seen the number of customs officers decline, we have seen the prevalence of drugs like crystal methamphetamine increase. So anything we can do to generate revenue, to get more customs officers out of the border, to support the X-ray, to support the batteries, to support the K-9 units, absolutely have to support that and thank them really for their hard work, as they are an integral and instrumental part of some of the very significant seizures of drugs that we have seen. Working in conjunction with the postal inspectors, just really got to support the customs officers. Don't harass them, don't try and film them or whatever. Just have respect because they work very hard to do their job and they serve with a passion to protect our island. And so, anything that they do to keep dangerous drugs like crystal methamphetamine from coming in, whether it's at the port or the post office or the airport, we absolutely as a community have to support them, because when you take a look around at the destruction that crystal meth has wrought on our island and our families, we really have no choice but to move in this way where we are assertive and aggressive in the protection of our border. And I believe that this bill allows for the generation of that tax revenue to be able to support customs and quarantine. So I'm very proud to stand in strong support of the measure. And just to the people of Guam, fangay respeto, por favor, have respect when dealing with our hardworking customs and quarantines officers. Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Any other member wish to speak on Bill 234-38? Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I certainly rise in full support of Bill 234-38. And I won't belabor the point, many great points made, first of all, by the author and, of course, as a co-sponsor and other members on the floor. But I want to just go ahead and reinforce once again the hard work that Customs has put in to this legislation. And also just to note that, I've always respected the fact that every time they've talked to me, whether as the chairman of appropriations or in other times in terms of budgetary talks and the like, they've always been very receptive to the fact that they know that there are things that they can do and bring forward to be able to generate the revenue and through what's actually, the right thing to do in terms of just the fact that all they need to do is get this legislation passed so they can move forward and become part of every other jurisdiction and what's happening in terms of the implementation of use tax. So, Mr. Speaker, really this is just allowing them the final tool in the toolbox. And also, I just wanted to rise to mention that we've had discussions on, in the event that there is any disruption with regard to their ability to be afforded the grant opportunity, that we stand ready to make sure that they have an appropriation in the 27 budget if that's required, even if it means the ability to use, current funding that they're continuing to have available to them. So we're going to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that regardless, we'll follow them through the process in terms of getting that grant, but we stand ready also to make sure that they have the resources they need. So I'm praying that this gets unanimous support, and it looks like it will. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to rise in full support of this measure. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. On Bill number 234-38, Senator Taitigui, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, today I rise in strong support of Bill 234-38, a measure that represents a long overdue step toward modernizing Guam's customs infrastructure. This bill is not just about adopting a new technology. It's about assuring the efficiency and transparency and security of our island's borders, trade, and revenue collections systems. For decades, Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency has been forced to use an outdated manual paperless customs management process instead of modern custom management software that the rest of the United States uses simply because it lies outside of the United States Customs and Borders Patrol territory and has significantly hindered the government's ability to collect revenue, enforce laws, and protect our community, despite the best efforts of our CQA agents. In a new age of digital and AI technology, modernizing CQA's system is not just critical, its necessity is very important. We need to ensure they have the operational and technological capacity to meet the modern demands and challenges. The Automatic System for Customs Data, or ASYCUD, is a globally recognized platform developed by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development and is already in use by over 100 countries, including many of our regional neighbors like Palau, Marshall Islands, and Federated States of Micronesia. The ASYCUDA will automate customs process, improve risk profiling, enhance revenue collections, and provide real-time trade data that will inform our policy decisions and economic planning. It will also strengthen interagency collaboration, allowing entities like public health, revenue and taxation, and port authority to access critical data for enforcement, compliance, and public safety. Additionally, testimony from the Office of Public Accountability has shown that Guam may be losing tens of millions of dollars annually due to revenue leaks and inefficiencies in our current system. While we cannot recover revenue that has been lost due to our current CQA manual management system, we can and must stop the fiscal bleed. Colleagues, I urge you to support this bill and to continue pushing for modernization of our government's agency to ensure our people are not left behind. Sijus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Any other member wish to speak on Bill number 234-38? Senator Parrish, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a long time coming. I remember when this was first mentioned. In fact, it was there was a study by UOG students. They put out a white paper on it, and yeah, it's good to see now it's coming to fruition. Yeah, one of the things I was looking at, just to do the due diligence, right? It's always good to see, make sure that we're protected. And I really like the part of the bill that talks about governance, where it says that it preserves the government of Guam's ownership, control, and timely access to all customs and revenue-related data processed through ASYCUDA, regardless of hosting or service agreements. So that's really critical because the data that's being generated, we want to have full ownership over it and not be open to I guess, data mining, right? So I think that's really critical when we're looking at governance of being integrated into this global type of system. And it's good to see that OTEC, they're willing to assist with the implementation of this, and they, I'm sure, are very aware of governance of data. The other thing that I liked about this is of course, Azucuda as itself is a way to modernize our system, from a paper-based type of system to now an automated system. And, seeing all the testimony from Department of Environmental Health, this would definitely help them in ensuring compliance and to ensure that the products that we're bringing in are safe for our community. Of course, it was mentioned about collections of use tax, and I remember sitting with the public auditor many years ago, and he was stating about his audit regarding use tax, and they had to go through boxes and boxes of paper, and they were able to come up with a figure of 60 million, which he feels is understated as far as collections is concerned. But the other thing is that the director also has to seek approval of the governor. So it's not just the director himself, but there's some checks in the system to ensure that there are eyes on this type of agreement. And of course, I guess just a concern for those, for the Director of Customs, I know we're about to engage and implement this system, but I think it's always good to be conscious and aware of, the cost, because as this becomes a uniform and sole source, we know with sole source types of agreements, the cost is higher, and that's something that we should be also vigilant of. Because although we're getting lots of, supposedly the expectation is we're going to receive more collections, we also have to be very vigilant about the cost, and so that we are really leveraging the collections to the betterment of our agencies and to our island, rather than letting it go out another direction. So I appreciate all the work that was put into this, and I look forward to its a successful implementation. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Any other member? Senator Matanani Salas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll keep it really short because I think our Guam Customs and Quarantine officers have waited long enough. 7 years they've been waiting. I heard this has been discussed since the 35th Guam Legislature, so that's 3 legislatures that this has been discussed. So I'll just keep it short. Again, the 38th Guam Legislature, hopefully that wait ends with this legislature. So I'm proud to support Bill 234 as one of the co-sponsors, and I urge my colleagues to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Matanani Salas. That exhausts all our members that have wished to speak. Senator Lujan, on closing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, colleagues, this bill represents a very critical investment in Guam's future, one that will have tangible benefits for our economy, our border security, and our government's operational effectiveness. When we talk about economic recovery and competitiveness, we must look beyond, of course, surface-level indicators and focus on systematic improvements that strengthen Guam's foundation for growth. Modernizing our customs management system is one such improvement. It increases efficiency, reduces delays for legitimate trade, and enhances our capacity to safeguard revenues and borders. Azucuda is a globally proven system. It brings Guam in line with international standards, allows better data sharing across agencies, and supports our customs agencies with tools that match its legal responsibilities and missions. It also ensures that Guam can leverage technology to respond quickly to changes in global supply chains, something that has become painfully clear over the last several years. This is not just a technology upgrade, it is an economic development measure. It sends, of course, signal to partners, investors, and international community that Guam is open for business and committed to modern, transparent, and efficient governance. We have heard from customs officials and stakeholders that this change is necessary, timely, and responsible. those are not just words. Those are facts backed by local and international experience. I believe this bill helps position Guam for a stronger, more resilient future, one where we are better equipped to support trade, strengthen compliance, and participate fully in regional and global economy. So with that, Mr. Speaker, again, but one other thing before I say thank you. One other thing that I may come back to this body once this is implemented is that we have to find a way to actually help Customs and Quarantine retain their officers. They constantly lose their officers to their federal counterparts. And so we're asking them to do the job, and they're doing it very well. And again, this is revenue that's going to be brought in. This is not new revenues, revenues that haven't been collected over the years. So it's our responsibility once it's implemented, again, to give them the tools, the well-equipped to implement the work that they do on a daily basis. So that is something, again, that I will be coming to the body to see how we can retain the officers at CQA and not lose them anymore to their federal counterparts. With that, I respectfully, I want to add on again yourself, Mr. Speaker, as a co-sponsor, yourself, Vice Speaker Ada, Senator Tello Taitagui, actually everybody wants to be on this. It's all 15 senators, so I'll the legal counsel to add everyone on.
Yeah, the only individuals that can be added on are those that are present here in the body.
Yes, okay. So I know that Senator Taitagui wanted to come on, but she left
Senator
the floor.
Perez.
Okay, with Senator Sabina Perez,
Yes.
she wants to be added on. Senator Taitagui already said that. Right. Talahi, I'm sorry.
Okay. On the amendment to add co-sponsors, Senator Vice Speaker, myself, Vice Speaker Ada, Senator Taitagui, and Senator Perez. Any objections? And Senators, that's it, yeah. Any objections?
Yes.
No objections?
I move to place Bill
234.
234-38 COR in the voting file, Mr. Speaker.
On the motion to move Bill 234-38 COR to the third reading. Any objections? There being none. Colleagues, we're going to go ahead and recess till 10 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll start out with Bill 279-38 COR. So we are in recess till 10 a.m. Thank you.